Entitled Step Monster got herself banned from my wedding. Final update. I tried posting this on AITA through a different account a couple days ago, but it didn't work out. Given the trigger warning, I'm not surprised. I've since concluded my wife and I did the right thing, so this will be my last attempt to post this story. I tried to add some info and change the wording a little. All the names are fake. My 28M stepmother, 49F, is a wannabe party planner. She had taken it upon herself to plan and host every party and holiday my dad's family has thrown since she married him. I never loved those occasions growing up. She's controlling and gets upset if people complain about anything, but humored her for my dad's sake. According to him, this helps her feel included. I'm getting married to my fiancée Jane, 26F, in July. We got engaged in early 2021, but Jane ended up getting pregnant a couple months after that, and we decided to postpone the wedding to focus on our son for a while. So we've had a long engagement. My stepmother has tried to hijack our wedding plans from day one, complaining, contacting our planner, showing up unannounced to Jane's dress appointments, etc., and we've repeatedly asked her to stop. Dad wants us to humor her, but she's clearly resentful of the fact that she's not hosting the wedding or being labeled mother of the groom in invitations. Besides our baby boy, we also have Luke, 4M, Jane's paternal half-brother. She got custody of him a few months into our relationship after his parents died. I ended up moving in with him during the pandemic and have been in Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad and refers to us as his sister and his OP, but we love him like a son. Stepmother, though, hates Luke. She accuses Jane of baby trapping her way into the family. That accusation only got worse after our son was born. My son gets along with Jane and adores the kids, but stepmother demands him to refuse babysitting Luke, so we don't have the kids with them often. Instead, Jane's brother and SIL usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close to ours in age. We had a thing last Sunday, and my BIL was out of town with his family. Jane's older siblings live in different cities, as well as my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place, and we left. We came back to find both kids crying, stepmother screaming, and dad weakly trying to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that both he and our son were going to be our ring bearers, and she went ballistic. She screamed that she wasn't going to allow that because he wasn't family. She then made me need to include the trigger warning when he started crying. His lip is still split. She'd never gotten to this point before. We immediately banned her from our house and from our wedding. Dad is fuming and has said he's not going without her. He's also convinced half of his side of the family, by severely downplaying what stepmother did, to boycott the wedding as well. This includes my stepbrother, who fully agrees with his mother no matter how many times I try to tell him the truth. Me and Jane are refusing to budge, but many of my cousins who aren't coming anymore are asking us to reconsider. Pretty much all of Jane's family agrees with us, but one of her aunts has suggested that maybe stepmother is acting out because she doesn't feel welcomed by my family. I've honestly had it with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad and really want him at my wedding, but I'm more than willing to go NC if it means protecting my family. Edit. I think I accidentally deleted the paragraph where I mentioned this, but we did press charges. We took Luke to the pediatrician the next day and gathered every piece of evidence we had. Not only did we have pictures of Luke's face, but by some miraculous strike of luck, we also had a nanny cam footage. Some commenters were right to assume that my SM hadn't been invited to our house, but my dad hasn't really gone anywhere without her in years, so we took precautions. We didn't expect her to actually do anything this awful, but we've never trusted her with the kids. The physical attack happened off camera, but there's some footage of her screaming and Luke crying before and after the event. She now has a child abuse charge on her rap sheet. We wouldn't let her get away with this. Edit 2. There's a lot of additional info I want to add. I'll try to respond to at least some of the comments. I did not expect the amount I've gotten so far, but all I'll add for now is that Luke is okay. The visit to the pediatrician happened the day after. He already had a counselor. Jane was pretty traumatized when her dad and stepmom died, and was worried it would rub off on him, and will continue treatment. We've been hugging and pampering him a little more than usual too. He's still upset, but is already doing much better. Update 1. I want to thank everybody who took the time to read and or comment on my previous post. It's been a tough week, but it's always great to know that people care. I haven't been able to reply to every comment, but I will try to address some in this update. This might get a little long. I'll start off by saying that me and Jane are going NC with my dad and SM. We haven't really spoken to either of them since the incident, and I don't plan on being the one to reach out. Any communication between us is being handled by my younger sister. She's completely on our side, but will remain in low contact for the time being. I've decided to adopt Jane's way of dealing with people she cares about. Forgive what's apologized for, but never forget. Basically, if Dad or SM ever truly understand what they did wrong and sincerely apologize, we're willing to forgive them, even if begrudgingly so, but we'll never ignore or let them forget what they did to our family. And for the time being, neither of them will be allowed near Luke, our baby, and any other kids we may have in the future, even if we do forgive them. As for the rest of my family, I read a lot of comments suggesting that I post pictures of Luke's face, as well as the nanny cam footage. I'm not very active on social media, but even if I was, I'm not comfortable exposing my injured preschooler like that, especially given that nothing on the internet ever truly goes away. I also decided not to share the pictures with my family unless truly necessary. I should probably mention that while my family adores my dad, most of them aren't very fond of SM. She had 2 failed marriages prior to meeting my father, the first of which resulted in my stepbrother, and he cheated on his then girlfriend to be with her. My family loved that girlfriend and disliked SM right away. Not only has she been controlling and manipulative since the beginning, she's also tried to force her way into the family matriarch role by any means possible. Taking over planning duties for every family event was her favorite way to do it, because all of the attention and compliments that come with it. The main reason why I hated these parties growing up was because she'd always find a way to make everything about her, including Christmas and mine and my sister's birthdays. The rest of the family felt natural about it, but they never liked her. With Luke, it was different. Most of my relatives didn't meet him until COVID restrictions got looser, and by then he was 2 years old. He's a bright and genuinely lovable kid, and there weren't really any other small children in the family, so everyone immediately started cooing over him. The way I see it, SM got upset that Jane and Luke were accepted by my family so easily compared to her experience, and that's why she resents them both, but I can't confirm that. She was also mad that, aside from not being the planner, she would have absolutely no involvement in the wedding party. She tried to pressure us into letting her officiate. One of Jane's best friends was offered that role a year ago, making stepbrother my best man. He wasn't interested, and I'd already gotten my best friend, or asking her sister's daughter to be our flower girl. We'd promised Jane's 3-year-old niece, also her sister's daughter is 15 and doesn't know us. She also tried to convince us to let my dad walk Jane down the aisle, since her father's gone, but her eldest brother, the BIL I mentioned in the first post, had already been enlisted. SM was disappointed that my family wasn't as involved in the wedding as Jane's, and kept making comments about how that would never happen if we put her in charge. All of that being said, there's nothing that can excuse being that awful to a child, especially if it really is the petty jealousy that I suspect. Because I haven't spoken with my father, my sister has been keeping me updated on what he's been up to. As I found out through her, the story my dad and SM told the rest of the family completely erases Luke's injury and abuse charges. It insinuates that me and Jane banned them because we got annoyed with SM and decided to take it out on my dad as well. Because most people already disliked SM, explaining what actually happened that night wasn't hard, and most of the relatives that I actually wanted at the wedding have apologized and are berating my dad as well. The people that didn't believe us, as well as those saying we overreacted, have been told they're not welcome in our home anymore. Those are mostly people from my dad's generation, so I can't say I'm surprised. But the realization that they're so biased they're willing to protect a woman they hate after she hurt a child, just to make my dad happy, has reassured me that I don't need any of them in my life. Stepbrother is still in denial. He refuses to believe his mother could hurt a child, even with all the evidence we have. I have to admit, I understand. I love my mom too, but that doesn't mean I'd excuse his obliviousness. So he's banned too. It sucks because we were close growing up, but I don't regret it. Besides, Jane has 3 other siblings besides Luke, the older BIL, a twin brother, and a younger sister, and I'm closer to them than I ever was to him. Speaking of Jane's family, they're all furious over what happened, and have been extremely supportive of us. Jane's maternal family basically adopted Luke after she got custody of him, and have called frequently to make sure he's okay. We did manage to save some money with everybody we uninvited, and have decided to use it to help Jane's cousin. She lives in a different country, and was previously unable to come to the wedding, so we're paying for her plane ticket. Luke has gotten much better, and is almost completely back to being the sunny child he's always been. The split lip was shallow. It's healing slowly, but didn't require any stitches. We sat him down a few days ago and explained that my dad and step-monster wouldn't be around anymore. He really liked my dad, but understands that he and SM are attached at the hip. He's clearly scared of her, but we're doing our best to make him feel safe. Me and Jane have reassured him that he is family. We love him, and no one will ever change that. I'm not too worried about my dad or SM trying to show up at the wedding, but we've alerted the venue and given them pictures just in case they try anything. Better safe than sorry. Some people brought attention to the fact that SM is a hypocrite for saying Luke isn't family. I agree, for obvious reasons. Her main excuse for pretty much everything she does is that she doesn't feel like my family welcomes her. Dad has been guilting me to take part in everything she plans by reminding us of that for as long as I can remember. The way he continues to make excuses for her without realizing this is basically a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Except Luke actually is family, is what has made me accept that while I will always love my dad, it's not healthy or safe for me and my family to be around him anymore. It hurts to know my son won't have his only remaining bio-grandfather in his life, but he has two amazing step-grandpas to make up for it. For now, I'm sad, but satisfied with how things have turned out. I don't like to complain about my life. It's a mess, but a beautiful one. I love my fiance, I love my kids, and I'm lucky enough to love my job. We're happy, and I'm not letting anyone ruin that. To whoever was annoyed at my censorship, when posting on AITA didn't work out, Jane suggested I make the writing less explicit. I'm not used to Reddit yet, so I might have overdone it a little bit. I hope this is my last update on the story, but I'll keep you posted. Again, thank you for all your love and support. Best wishes to all of you. Let's check out some relevant comments here from OOP. So OOP says, the only reason I know that this is the first time she's hit him is because this was the first and last time she was with the kids unsupervised. Me and Jane were around every previous time she saw Luke. She didn't want my dad to babysit him, and we'd only asked him to on a few occasions before. My sister was still living with them at the time, and has assured me that Luke was never out of her sight. I know and trust my sister enough to believe her. First time or not, I will not give her a second chance. She'll never hurt either of my kids again. Then OP when told to secure passwords with all vendors. We've actually had passwords with vendors since day one. Some of the earlier ones we met actually recommended us to do it. SM did contact our planner a while back, saying she had our approval to talk to our vendors. She didn't let her, and we got a bit more strict with passwords after that. And another commenter says, so is SM serving any jail time? If she attacked a child and you guys pressed charges, I would imagine she would have to be processed and eventually serve some time for her crime. OP says, we hope so. We're setting up a date for the arraignment. Then another commenter says, start a file for SM. Keep any and all texts, voicemails, and attempts of her communicating. Do the same with anyone who has taken her side because she could escalate and you may need that info. Those people are flying monkeys and she sent them to not only plead her case, but report back to her the things you may have told them so she can continue to play her victim card. You were great to have the nanny cam, but should also make sure to notify his daycare or school that she's not to be given info or access to him. Get cameras that have audio just in case she shows up at your house, and password protect all of your wedding vendors and let them know not to give her any info and to notify you if she tries. Your dad may be harmless, but she is not. OP replies, that second advice is something we've been pretty occupied with, actually. This past week has been mostly about the kids and collecting evidence, but I'll definitely check out the J and MIL sub. Then another commenter says, did you say that if your father and stepmonster apologize that you'll allow them at your wedding? I wasn't quite sure what you were saying. OP replies, absolutely not. My father and SM are not welcome at the wedding, no matter the circumstances. They could offer me an island and I'd still refuse to let them come back into our lives right now. I only plan to forgive anything far off in the future, and only if they apologize sincerely. Even then, they will have no access to the kids for years after that. Knowing SM, I highly doubt she'll ever feel sorry for what she did, so we're not counting on it anyway. And now we get update 2. I'll start off by probably disappointing a lot of people. We're coming to terms with the fact that it's unlikely that SM will get anything more than a slap on the wrist. Me and Jane are discussing our next move with our lawyer, but we're still not sure how we're going to move forward. It's too early to tell anyway, so we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves any more than we already have. However, I'm relieved to announce that we're getting started on the process for a restraining order against SM. We're using the same evidence we gathered the week following the incident. including the nanny cam footage and pictures of Luke, and we'll focus on that for the time being. I still haven't spoken to my father. My sister is still in LC, but is seriously considering cutting ties with him. Because my sister is the only one on my side that still talks to him, my father keeps trying to ask her about me, and whether I've calmed down yet. According to her, he's annoyed that half of his family refuses to talk to him, but still doesn't seem to accept why. I told my sister that she doesn't need to keep playing messenger pigeon between me and our father. I never asked her to do it, and it's clearly taking a toll on her, but she insists she'll stop when it feels right. By the way, there's absolutely no doubt whether SM attacked Luke. Not only did Luke say it the moment we got home, but that was also confirmed by my father in a failed attempt to defend her behavior. He never even tried to hide it from us. That, and the fact that he gave Luke an ice bag, is literally the only positive thing I can say about his actions. And SM was too busy screaming about how much of a whining brat Luke was being to deny it. To those who guessed SM is younger than my dad, you get an invisible cookie. She's also 5 years younger than his previous girlfriend. They got together when I was around 15. Also, stepbrother is only a month older than me. She turns 50 later this year, had him at 21, married his father a year later. Both our kids are doing mostly okay. Luke's back to running around the house in his Superman costume whenever he doesn't have anything better to do. He did have a few nightmares this past week, and has asked to sleep in our bed twice. We don't mention my father around him, and he's still seeing his counselor. Our 14-month-old has learned 2 new words, hi and bye, and Luke is trying to teach him to say his name. Jane's sister, who moved away for college, is coming over for a couple days to celebrate her 21st birthday later this month. Luke's excited to see her, and Jane's excited to get drunk with her. Can't say I blame her. We're hoping her presence will cheer us all up. I'm not doing so good, and neither is Jane. She's usually the kind of person who tries to keep her negative emotions to herself, but she cried herself to sleep almost every night the week it happened. It breaks my heart to see her like that, and I can't help but feel this is my fault. There's a part of me trying to tell me I had no way of knowing SM would do anything like that, but that doesn't really change anything. I allowed my father near my kids unsupervised, even though I knew she'd probably tag along. This is the guiltiest I've ever felt, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. Jane has been improving lately, and is trying to convince me to see a therapist. I've never really done that before, apart from a psychiatrist when I was younger, but now feels like a good time to give it a try. I was surprised by a few messages this week from people telling me to forgive my father and SM, as well as re-invite them to the wedding. That's not happening. In fact, I'm not willing to ever forgive SM. My dad has now degraded to a huge maybe, but I will never understand or forget what she did. Although the wedding is the last thing on our minds right now, we're not postponing it. We considered rescheduling, but the date we'd settled on is pretty much the only one that works for our guests. We have passwords with all our vendors and gave them all clear instructions not to talk to anyone but us. Jane's family is bigger and closer to each other, which is why they're more involved in the wedding than mine. But I do have family participating. My sister is one of the bridesmaids, 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mom is walking down the aisle with the wedding party. Going through all of this with Jane has made me understand even more just how much I love this woman. I couldn't ask for a better partner to start a family with, and I have no idea what I'd do without her. This didn't tear us apart, and I couldn't be more thankful. I probably won't make any more updates until after the wedding, unless something big happens. In the meantime, as always, best of wishes to all of you. And then we get update 3. I didn't plan on updating again before the wedding, but something pretty huge happened. The good news is that we got the RO. The bad news is me and Jane had to see both SM and my father at the court hearing. This was our first time seeing them since we kicked them out of our house over a month ago, and neither of us was looking forward to it. We left the kids with Jane's brother and SIL, so at least Luke didn't have to see them. The hearing itself went a lot quicker than I expected. I'll give credit where it's due. My father was, at the very least, smart enough to understand there was no way they were winning this. There was a lot of evidence against them. Not only did we have the nanny cam footage and Luke's pictures and medical record, but my sister had also gathered every text and email SM had sent her and the family about what happened. And SM hates speaking on the phone, so there were a lot of those. They didn't even bother to get an attorney for the hearing. The judge granted us a protection order against SM. She's not allowed within 500 feet of us or our property anymore. We're changing all our locks this week, and I'm thinking about changing my phone number as well. I have to admit, the moment we left the courthouse was the safest I'd felt since this whole ordeal started. Jane was close to tearing up with joy when we got into the car. We picked up the kids and went to McDonald's with BIL and his family to celebrate. Hours later, my father called me. The order doesn't extend to him, so he can still do that. Jane and the kids were in bed, so I answered. I didn't expect him to change his mind and apologize all of a sudden, but decided to give him one last chance. He tried to start some awkward small talk, but I told him to get to the point. He asked me if the order was truly necessary. I stated very clearly that SM was never coming near Jane or my children again, and that I was glad I had an RO to formalize that. Every excuse he had for SM was pretty easy to shut down. But she only hit him once. Yep, and that's enough for me. The kids need their grandma. She's not their grandma. Mom is. She's my wife. You need to respect her. She attacked Luke. She disrespected my family in my own house. I don't owe her anything, and least of all my respect. He then went on a rant about family, and how much of a godsend SM was and everything she'd done for me and my sister since she came into our lives. I replied by listing every time I could remember about her lying, overstepping a boundary, or acting unhinged around me, my family, or my sister. I brought up both my adult life and my youth. Examples included her attempts to hijack most of our milestones, recently our wedding plans, our son's birth, Jane's baby shower, and my sister's college graduation, her obsession with the idea of a perfect family, and her disgusting attitude towards Luke. I also made sure to mention her habits of going through mine and my sister's stuff when we were younger. It's trivial compared to everything else, but this behavior went on until my sister moved out of their house, only 3 months ago. We're pretty sure she found out about Jane's wedding dress appointments by reading my sister's planner while she wasn't home, for instance. Some of the memories I mentioned are long and hard to explain, but they did cement the fact that SM means nothing to me. He tried to go with the whole she doesn't feel included case again, but I shut him up. I said he'd had the opportunity to protect his grandchildren, but had chosen his monster of a wife instead, and that's enough for me to want nothing to do with him. I hung up without saying goodbye. My sister told me he called afterwards, and she told him she was going in to see with him as well. I think we're both starting to accept our father won't change. It sucks, but he's made his priorities clear, and his children and grandkids aren't among them. For now, that's it. Now that they're fresh in my mind, I'm thinking about sharing some of the stories I reminded my father of, but that's going to take a while. Until then, as always, best of wishes to all of you. Alright, more relevant comments here. Commenter says, but she only hit him once, would have ended the phone call for me. OP replies, I almost hung up on him when he said that. The only reason I didn't was because I knew I wasn't going to talk to him again anytime soon, and I still had a lot to say. Another commenter says, I'm curious how your stepbrother is handling all this. Like, the RO is something you can't just push away. A judge stated that what his mother did was so terrible she needed to stay away from those children. It just feels like something you can't stick your head in the sand and claim that you could never believe that your mother could hurt someone like that. And OP replies, I haven't spoken to him since the days before the RO, and he hasn't tried to contact me or my sister. He was still in denial last time we talked, but seemed a bit doubtful. To be honest, I think he's the only one who isn't a complete lost cause and still has a slight chance of coming around. He's still banned, but I might be willing to talk to him about this whole thing. Another commenter says, holy hell. If you're comfortable sharing, I know many of us would want to hear those hijacking stories. Hope the kids don't have too terribly long impact on their life from this, especially the preschooler. OP replies, Luke hasn't mentioned her in a while. I don't doubt he was affected by this, but I think he understands everything is okay now. Our baby is barely a year old, and if it's up to me, he won't even know she exists until she's grown. I'll definitely share some of the stories as soon as I can bring myself to write them down. Another commenter says, it's crazy how the court gave your dad a chance, not giving him the protection order, and you giving him a chance to explain on the phone, and he still managed to screw up. You guys gave so many chances, and your dad fails to see that SM is a bad person. Your dad doesn't seem like he's going to change, and until he does somehow, stop giving him more chances. OP replies, that was his last chance, and he blew it. If he ever comes around, and that's a big if, it'll still take me a long time to allow him back into our lives. Now we get update 4 here. After being engaged for over 2 years, me and Jane finally got married last Saturday. We're still getting used to calling each other husband and wife, but we'll get there, hopefully. The wedding was awesome. The kids had fun, our extended families finally met, and we danced so much I could barely stand the next day. Luke took his ring bearer duty seriously and held my son's hand as they walked down the aisle. Besides my aunt getting crap-faced and being let out on a wheelchair, which I already thought would happen anyway, everything went according to plan. It's been 4 months since we got the RO against SM. Things have been mostly quiet, and I wouldn't have it any other way, except completely quiet, but we can't always get what we want. I never really worried about SM showing up at the wedding, especially after the RO. It's literally illegal for her to come close to us, and we made it very clear that if she tried, we'd call the cops right away. My friends still warned me to take safety measures, most of which I did. SM didn't show up, of course, but I'm a strong believer that any money spent on security is well spent, so no regrets on that end. My stepbrother and I wished each other happy birthdays, and he also texted Jane on hers back in June. That's the only contact we've had during these months. He knows that the door is still open if he wants to apologize. My dad has given up on trying to reach me. We haven't spoken since April. He's still trying to talk to my sister for some reason, but she's ignoring him. A few days after she went NC with him, they had a huge fight over the phone about SM's treatment of us over the years. Insults were thrown, sore subjects were brought up, and most importantly, my father took SM's side on almost everything. My sister called me crying afterwards. I wanted to call him and yell at him, but she told me not to. She's doing okay now. She hasn't blocked him, but doesn't take his calls or answer his texts. She's only gotten 3, a weak apology, one on my birthday back in May, and a long rant after neither of us wished him a happy Father's Day. After all, despite our differences, he's still our father. He's not wrong. I love my father, and I always will, but I can't be around him anymore. While I've closed that door, I'm not locking it just yet. He knows what he needs to do if he wants his family back. I don't think he'll do it, but if there's the slightest chance he might, I'll consider opening the door an inch or two. This is my wife's suggestion. I'm a lot less optimistic than she is, but maybe it's important to hold on to that hope. She hasn't forgiven him, though, or SM. Jane has always been very protective of Luke, so it was no surprise that this disaster shook her. A part of me was scared she'd blame me, but she called me a dumbass when I told her that. I've been in therapy for a few months, and it's helped a lot more than I thought it would. I've realized SM's behavior around me growing up was a lot worse than I always thought, and it's great to finally be able to get my feelings off my chest. Right now, I'm more than happy. I just married the most amazing woman ever, and I have the family I always dreamed of. None of us are perfect, but I never thought life would be this great to me. I'll stick around. Reddit is a lot more than I expected, but I can sleep peacefully now. So it's safe to say this will be my last update on this. Thank you all for the kindness and advices you gave me these months. I could have never expected the support I got from you guys, and I can't begin to describe how helpful it was. Seriously, thank you all. An edit came 3 days later. Okay, I updated too soon. I didn't want to write another post, so I'll just add this here. My stepbrother called me earlier today. Apparently, he and SM had a fight and he wants to meet up. I agreed as long as it was just the two of us. We're meeting up for coffee on Wednesday. I have no idea what to expect, but even if he does apologize, I need to know he understands how and why he let us down. And then we get another new update. This time it's update 5. Hey guys, I've been away from Reddit for a few months due to some stuff at work, but a lot of people have been messaging me about my stepbrother, so I want to give you a small update. I've been busy and tired these days, so I might gloss over some details. Feel free to ask me anything. I first met my stepbrother for coffee back in August. He'd had a fight with SM and the RO was brought up. She'd lied to him about some details, accusing Luke of picking on my baby, bad-mouthing Jane, and more, but this time he managed to force her to tell him the truth. My stepbrother started to reevaluate his relationship with his mother. After talking to his therapist and his friends about it, as well as the way she'd raised him, he finally accepted I wasn't exaggerating about what she did to Luke. He wanted to talk to me back in June, but didn't want to distract me and Jane from the wedding. Me and my stepbrother spent the last 4 months working on rebuilding our relationship. We've been meeting for coffee or lunch and discussing his mother and what she did to our lives and my kids. Jane started joining us in October, and the kids saw him again for the first time 2 weeks ago. Things were awkward between us for a while, but we're good now. He's also making amends with my sister. In early November, he completely cut contact with SM. Jane and the kids are doing amazing. Luke turned 5 in September, and our baby will be 2. Holy crap, in early February. We're spending the holidays with Jane's family in Brazil, while my stepbrother stays with his girlfriend. Things are great. That's all. I'm signing off for now, and I'll let you know if anything happens. Happy holidays, everyone. Best of wishes to all of you. Family drama. Am I right? Look, OOP had the right read on this from the jump, and that was to just basically press charges against SM for busting poor little Luke's lip wide open, and anyone that doesn't understand why that was necessary, you just cut off contact with them. So it's a shame that they weren't able to make it out to their wedding, but, you have to own up to your mistakes, and it sounds like OOP's dad and SM are refusing to do so yeah, you gotta cut them off. Good call. Story 2. I lost my wife. 12 days after giving birth to our first child, my wife suffered a fatal blood clot. I spent the last 9 months reading posts here and thinking about all the challenges my wife and I had ahead of us, but I was never really worried because we were a great team. I was so excited to see my wife become the most amazing mother. We spent hours talking about the future, about the things we would teach our son, about the experiences we would share. I'm now a widower and a single father to a newborn. I'm broken. There are a million scenarios running through my head, and in none of them can I do this without her. My wife gave my life purpose. The loneliness I feel is unlike anything I could have ever imagined. I love my son, and I will do everything in my power to raise him in a way that would make my wife proud. But in this moment, that feels impossible. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this post is. If anyone has any suggestions on how I could possibly move forward, I'm all ears. Edit. Thank you all for your comments and DMs. The response to this post was far greater than I expected. I can't respond to everyone, but I'm reading all of the comments. I'm grateful for all of the kind words, condolences, thoughts, prayers, well wishes, words of encouragement, and advice, and I'm especially grateful to those who shared your own experiences with loss and grief. I expect I'll be looking back at this post for quite a while. Now let's read the top comment to that post. User 1 says, I'm so sorry. I don't know if I can find the words, or if the words exist, to console you and your family after such a profound loss. We grieve because we loved, and that love makes it so hard to say goodbye. You will miss her, and that will feel like agony at times, but whenever you miss her, you can see her in your son's face. Someday, when his personality starts to peek through, you'll catch glimpses of her through him. You'll hear her in his laugh, see her in his smile. When it feels like the world is closing in and you're at the end of your rope, but you miraculously find the strength to persevere, that's her too. The will to persevere and keep pushing on in the face of unimaginable heartache. That's your wife. Grief can feel like a thick, choking fog, and to be completely honest, it never goes away, but you grow bigger around it. Right now, you may feel paralyzed, but you will navigate this with grace and you will emerge on the other side of this. You're both going to make it, and you're going to make her so proud. Sending you and your family so much love. And then we get an update post. I received a tremendous amount of outpouring of support in both comments and messages as a result of that post, so I wanted to share an update with you all. My son is 6 months old today. That means in 12 days, I will have lived half a year as a single parent. Half a year as a widower. When I created my original post, it was nearly impossible for me to imagine I would ever make it this far. Figuring out how to mourn my wife while simultaneously figuring out how to care for a newborn has been, without a doubt, the greatest challenge of my life. I know that I still have so much progress to make on both fronts, but for today at least, I'm happy to report that my son is thriving. I'm hesitant to say this because I know so many people here are struggling with any number of baby difficulties, and because I don't want to jinx it, but I think I might just have the easiest baby in the history of babies. He's eating and growing like crazy. He's on a fairly regular nap schedule. He's been sleeping through the night for months, 10 to 12 hours every single night, and when he is awake, he's almost always in a good mood. It's like he knows that I'm not supposed to be doing this on my own, feels bad for me, and has decided to go easy on me. Despite my son's best efforts to make my life easier, the past 6 months have certainly been the hardest of my life. It's truly terrifying to think of all the challenges I have ahead of me. The prospect of raising my son on my own, and in a way that would make my wife proud, is truly daunting. Plus, now if I screw him up, I've got no one to share the blame with. It's 100% on me. But at least now I have some hope. After all, the next 6 months can't possibly be harder than the last. And if I can make it to 1 year, who's to say I won't make it to 2? I will never stop missing my wife, and though I long for reunion with her, I've come to accept that before I can know that joy, I have a major responsibility in this life. I will put everything I have and everything I am into raising my son in honor of her. I will keep her memory alive and make sure he knows everything there is to know about his amazing, loving, funny, sarcastic, outspoken, vibrant, beautiful mother. Let's read a few more relevant comments here. User 2 says, from a mom of a 6-month-old, you're an incredible father, and you most definitely don't need to make your wife proud, because without a single doubt, she already is. I'm in awe of you and your strength. I wish more than anything that you didn't have to be this strong, that things could have been different for you. But despite everything life has thrown at you, you've stayed constant and loving in your son's life. I don't know you, but I'm so effing proud of you. And OP replies, I really don't consider myself to be strong. I still fall apart most days. And I would have never made it this far without the amazing community that has stepped up and surrounded me in the wake of my wife's death. But thank you for the incredibly kind words. Absolutely devastating, heartbreaking. One foot in front of the other is really all that you can do, man. Be strong for your son. Be strong for your wife. You've done a great job these first 6 months, and I know you're going to make it through. I can't even imagine how difficult it is, but you've already displayed a level of strength that is so inspiring. So sorry for your loss, but you're doing incredible. Story 3. Slight chance my 39M, pregnant wife 38F had an affair. Should I ask for a paternity test or wait? New update. My wife 38F and I 39M have been together for 12 years. I don't know how to describe it other than calling it the perfect relationship. I think in 12 years, we've only ever gotten to the point of really raising our voices at one another maybe 2 or 3 times. We do everything together, but always have never had issues allowing each other to lead our own lives and follow our own interests. We bought a house where we wanted. We both have high-paying jobs that have great work-life balance. Basically, it's been everything short of perfect. We've been trying for 2 years to get pregnant, and it hadn't been happening. We were just about to start the fertility stuff when I came home from a work trip, and guess what? She's pregnant. I had this weird instant thought of, wait, I thought we didn't try during the week last month because of the fertility testing, but I couldn't remember exactly because, to be honest, we were busy at it, so I just assumed I misremembered. Now, I travel around the country pretty regularly for work. Other than COVID, I've been on the road as much as 40 weeks a year sometimes. Since COVID, it's been less, but still more than a week a month. Over the last 4 to 5 years, my wife has gotten very friendly with a guy she works with. Let's call him Matt. Matt is slightly younger, I think 34M or so. I know him. He's married. I know his wife. They've worked together for I think 7 years or so. He's always been around. Him and I have been friendly. Have I ever thought something was happening? No, but I've always thought you'd be a fool to not think there's even a 1% chance your spouse would go outside the relationship. Maybe I'm naive, but I've always seen it as a safeguard to not take my wife or any other partner in the past for granted. She's never given me a reason to think she'd do that, but anything is possible. So about a month ago, I'm out of state for work and she's at home. I ask her what she's doing earlier in the day and she says Matt is coming by for dinner. Not out of the ordinary. Matt comes by from time to time. Sometimes with his wife, sometimes without. Sometimes when I'm not there. I don't think much of it. We have a security system which includes cameras both inside and outside of the house, which we installed after an unrelated incident a few years ago. They record and are live accessible by both her and I. I often use those cameras to check on the dog when I or both of us are away, as the rest of the system is monitored by a company in case of an alarm going off. She knows I check those cameras. There's a system installed where I can talk through them. I'll mess with my wife and she will with me on them if either of us are out of town. She travels for work as well, but far less than I do. Point is, it's known that I check them often when I'm not at home. So I turn on the camera and I see my 4 months pregnant wife lying on the floor, on her side with Matt sitting, straddling her legs and using a foam roller to massage her hips. So I'm like, okay, what the F is this? I start rewinding through the footage and they're eating and talking normally, but then they get on the couch and get under the same blanket. Now they're feet to feet, but that couch isn't that big. Then they move to the floor, and that's when I logged in. Anyway, I text her. I'm still watching the cameras. They both look like deer in headlights, and he very quickly leaves. We get into an argument. She isn't mad at me accusing her, but she's adamant that nothing has or ever would happen, and that what I saw was innocent and she was complaining about being in pain from the pregnancy, which I know is true. She's already having some issues with back pain, etc. The biggest point of that discussion was that I asked, if I were there, would you two have been comfortable doing any of that in front of me? And she reluctantly admitted, no, probably not. I told her I didn't want to talk to her after that, and we'd talk when I got home 3 days later. That's when it hit me. What if my weird gut moment feeling about her telling me she was finally pregnant was this? What if my 1% happened and this is not my child we're having? Now it eats away at me while I'm at a hotel alone 1,000 miles away for 3 days. I reconcile with myself that I think it's less likely than more likely that something between them has happened. But basically, my 1% just jumped to 10%, 20% maybe? I get home and she's on eggshells and doesn't mention it. I kinda wait to see what she's going to do. 2 days later, she finally brings it up and breaks down. Swears nothing has happened, and she would never. Doesn't do anything over the top to try to prove anything, which I took as a good sign. But anyway, we talk out the issue and everything to a point of at least moving forward for now. But I'm still coping and dealing with it, figuring out how to retrust after all this time. I'm getting more and more understanding of the fact that they're friends. They've been friends for so long, maybe he has intentions. But I don't see her having any, and I've never really picked up on it. And I've spent time around both of them together many, many times and never caught anything. So the thing that's destroying me right now is, if I'm wrong and something did happen, while I can figure out how to deal with that, what if that child isn't mine? In the argument and few long conversations we've had about the situation since, I've never brought that up, and she's not mentioned it, mostly because I don't want to make the situation worse and crush her if in fact she's telling the truth, which I mostly believe. The only thing I can think to do at this point is to wait until the baby is born and immediately order a paternity test in secret. Should I do that? Should I tell her and have it dealt with now? If you're a woman in her shoes and you're telling the truth, would that destroy you or your view of me? If you're lying, what would you do if I asked? I don't want to ask a super vague question, but what do I do? Update. So many comments. Thank you everyone, more than I can address directly, but I'm going to keep reading a few things. 1. Stop DMing me about this. Thanks. 2. Some have made some good points about addressing it now rather than later, and that's something that I'm considering more than I was before. Thank you. 3. To those focused only on my relationship, I get it, but that's not what I'm focused on. We've been talking about it a lot. My wife and I are pretty open people with each other. I'm not saying I'm convinced nothing happened, but I'm more focused on paternity right now. 4. If I need to track, spy on, Life 360 my wife, then this relationship is over already. That's not the relationship we have and not the one I ever want. And in my opinion, not one anyone should ever have. We're working on rebuilding trust. As I said in this long-winded post, my default of 1% possibility went up to 10% or so. Trust me, I'm taking my relationship seriously, but to those I've said this to already, if this kid isn't mine, then there's no longer any conversation to have. 5. I've already had this discussion with my lawyer. I don't live in a state where the birth certificate stuff will be an issue. If I have paperwork that this child isn't mine, then divorce isn't going to be much of an issue. Both of us are in an independent financial situation where it won't matter much regardless. I'll keep up with this post as long as I can and post an update when and if anything gets resolved. Then we get an update. Slight chance my 39F pregnant wife 38F had an affair. Should I ask for a paternity test or wait? Here's the original post from yesterday. So she was out of state on a business trip until late last night. It's Friday, so she worked from home in our kitchen. So I asked to talk and brought it up and asked for a test. She immediately said yes and said there's zero doubt and nothing that she'd even have a second to worry about. But she has no problem doing it now. The only caveat I left it with is, if it's invasive at all per our doctors, then I'm okay waiting until it's low risk. I'm not a doctor, no clue what they'd have to do it now. Not sure when we are, but she's aware and we're getting one. It was a decent and longer conversation. We're currently sitting together getting lunch. She's got no clue I did this on Reddit, hence the new account because she's on here somewhere. Thank you everyone for your help and opinions. A bunch of you made me realize that we're already really open about everything, and if nothing happened, then she shouldn't worry about getting one. I was more worried about her health and adding some insane level of stress if it was an issue, as she's an at-risk pregnancy and it took so long for us to get pregnant. So again, thank you all for the help. I suppose I can update if it's mine or not, but I'm not sure how long that will be. I'm 90 to 95% sure it is mine, but this will help us continue this conversation. Thank you. Update. Just because it seems to be more of a topic on this post versus the other one for some reason, yes, I have the footage. No, I haven't talked to Matt yet. He's told her he wants to talk about it, but I've told him to wait on that. My relationship with my wife and the paternity is what's important right now. I will eventually talk to Matt. No, I'm not going to get Matt's wife involved intentionally. I don't know why I would, other than to just be vindictive. I'm not going to cover for him, obviously, but his relationship is his, and mine is mine. I'm not interested in making this worse. Whatever is going on between him and his wife isn't any of my business. Now let's read some more relevant comments here. This is OOP when asked why his wife thought she could be intimate with someone else. We've talked about it at length. Nothing is being ignored. I could write you an essay about our past, her reasons, and my feelings on it, but instead I'll just say I'm aware of it. She's claiming innocence of anything further, but at the time admitting that it wasn't a good look, but she wasn't thinking about it at the time. And that's what we're currently working through. And then this is when it doesn't look innocent and asked if his wife goes to Matt's house when his wife isn't home. She's 4 months. I was home, and we had been on the clock, to the point of the days blending together. Trust me, we are pretty open people and pretty comfortable with ourselves and each other. I don't know if she's been to his house without his wife. I mean, the 3 and 4 of us all hang out probably once or twice a month, but they work directly together every day and have for years. So obviously there's a closeness there. They're both upper management in their company. And at my company, I have long-term friends that are women. I've traveled with them, we've done dinner and hung out in hotel rooms together, but I've never done anything because that's not me. I'm married and love my wife and my life. I have no reason to. So, I mean, the optics are bad. I just have to decide if it's only the optics, or if she has a reason too. Maybe he has a reason too, and that's what I saw? That I'm not sure about, but that comes down to, do I trust her to handle that? She says if that's the case, she's never noticed it, and she hangs out with him and his wife just about as much as he hangs out with us. She works in a building right near them. My company is based out of Chicago, and I live on one of the coasts, so my coworker friends are much more spread out. We can't go to the bar to grab after-work drinks any day like they can. Honestly, I usually go to their work hangouts more than mine because of that. I'm friendly with her CEO because of it. So is it perfect? No. But I've always trusted her. I've never had a reason not to. In 15 years, this is the first crack or dent in it. Then OOP gives a clearer description of what happened that day. That's not what I saw. She said something. He froze. Said something I couldn't hear. She said, no, don't worry about it. He put something in the dishwasher and she walked him out to the front door. He didn't have to dive out the window. You have to remember, this is Reddit. I'm not putting every single nuanced detail in this because that would take me hours to write, and I'm not putting my security footage on the internet for strangers to see. The reason I have the security system in the first place is because of a stranger on the internet. I'm not saying anything beyond that didn't happen for sure between them. I'm saying I don't know now and I don't have any proof. That's what my wife and I are discussing just about every day and what we're working through. The original point of the post was, the only thing we hadn't talked about was paternity because I didn't want to put her in a situation where she medically loses the child, mine or not. Not only have I not been able to put every single nuanced thing in this, I've also sprinkled in false details about our lives. Nothing pertinent to what happened, but other mundane details. I was a very small public figure at one point, and some lowlife from the internet traveled across the country to make death threats against us because of something warped in his head, to the point where the federal government had to get involved. People in here are wildly jumping at conclusions with much less information than I have, and ignoring the original point of the post and the original questions asked. As he told Matt's wife, she is my wife's friend's wife. We don't meet up and knit together. I know her through my wife. I see her maybe once every few months at a bar after work, or if they come by for dinner or to hang out. We aren't besties. Again, what should I go tell her? Hey, your husband was at my house. I knew he was there and I saw him run a foam roller over the outside of my wife's hip while he was sitting on her feet. It's obvious they're effing, and even though I'm not sure, it's possible she's carrying his baby. This isn't a soap opera. There's nothing I know that I can tell her, so why would she take my word on what tiny evidence there is? And why or how in the world would that help my situation? If all of this is false, now I've destroyed my relationship for acting like a child trying to drum up drama for what obviously looks like being vindictive. And I put them in the same situation we're in now, for something that I don't know is true yet. I believe you have entirely lost the plot here. Then we get a new update. This is update 2. I'm an old man at heart, and I didn't understand how UpdateBot works. So here's your next update. I also edited this into the last update. Update number 2. Hi folks, so I haven't been touching this account at all, as I was mostly bombarded by people telling me I'm an AI, wishing my wife a miscarriage, claiming she's going to get a secret abortion to quote, save herself, or that I'm a clown for not keeping it real and destroying someone else's marriage over speculation only. I'm amazed that people are still following this and invested in it after all this time. Here's where we're at. Yes, my wife is still very much pregnant. She's in the hard to pick things up up off the floor stage. She's due in 8 weeks. Holy crap, 6 weeks actually. Just looked at the calendar. We're getting weekly ultrasounds at this point. He's already about 5 pounds and has a big ol' head. Her and I have had some very long, direct conversations about everything. She's adamant that nothing has ever happened and nothing ever would. For a while, she was pretty upset with herself for causing this and causing my feelings of doubt. I've done my best to remedy that, as I've got to keep stress off her as much as possible right now, but it will for sure be revisited after the birth. As I've been saying the entire time, I'm really only worried about the child and the birth going well, etc. Well, mostly, maybe not only. The only thing we still really disagree on is I thought he was getting too close because he had developed feelings or was getting attention that he wasn't getting elsewhere, maybe, etc. She doesn't see it that way, but has also said it's possible, but if so, she was blind to it. I told her I wanted a paternity test and she immediately agreed to it and said no problem at all. My only stipulation was that it couldn't be medically risky or stress-inducing at all, as she's a high-risk pregnancy. We both spoke to her doctors about it, and they basically told us that our only option was to go to the courthouse because they wouldn't do one without the law involved, which we both thought was ridiculous. Her doctor was a bit thrown off by it, so I didn't press very hard. It was honestly her pretty much demanding it. I knew there were other options. I looked into those other options and ultimately decided to wait until the birth, and I have a lab already set up to do it, ready to go. I'm 95% sure it's unnecessary, but I'm still getting one for my peace of mind, and mostly so that nothing will come between me and my child. For those of you that have left me messages of support that I didn't get back to, thank you. I'm going to spend some time going through them tonight before I run off again. For those who've left messages that think I should be acting like a 17-year-old high school student and either getting violent, purposely cheating on my wife to prove a point, or other childish trash, thanks for the entertainment at least. Stop watching TLC and TikTok. That dumbass drama ain't the way, kiddos. And to the one person who suggested I cause an accident with my wife, I hope you end up behind bars someday. It's really likely I'm not going to come back here after tonight until after I get the results from the lab. So if you're really still interested in the results, come back in 1.5 to 2 months. I've been told the results take about 48 hours once submitted. I'll give you your Mari moment then. And OP answers some questions in a comment. Here, just as a preempt, I'm going to post something I responded to someone else on the last post just a minute ago, but I likely won't check this account until after the birth after this. Comment number 1. People seem to be reading into the reasons I thought all of this was more than what I said. I've seen, dude, they were in bed together, you caught them, or they were cuddling under a blanket. Totally get how the telephone game works, but I never said any of that. So I'll clarify, I guess. Here's exactly what I saw. They were on a sectional couch in my living room at either ends under the same large blanket, feet to feet. The massage, she was laying on the floor on her side and he was sitting by her feet and rolling one of those big foam rollers on her back and side, which is something I do all the time because she's been complaining about back and outer hip pain. Still enough for me to raise a concern with her, but people seem to be reading into that as they were basically dry humping and thought you couldn't see. Comment number 2. I'm being told that I'm being oblivious and ignoring the obvious, and letting her and him off the hook. This is a direct comment I left someone giving my thoughts on that. I think they said something like, "This is what guys who choose to have their head in the sand say." My response: yeah, I'm pretty well aware of that. I've also stated many times that my wife is a high-risk pregnancy, so I've decided to try and not explode things until I know something for a fact and risk what would potentially be the only opportunity I have to have a child at my age. If it turns out I'm wrong and that happens because I blew all this up over nothing, I don't know how I could live with myself, and my marriage likely wouldn't survive that anyway, so I don't see that as a winning option. If I deal with it calmly and like an adult, and if I'm wrong, then great, we can move on. And if I'm right, then it can still be dealt with accordingly with facts and not speculation. If the child is mine and the birth goes well, then we have a healthy child and I can deal with the remainder of any damage she has or hasn't done without potentially risking the only child I'm going to have. Trust me, I'm not ignoring it. I'm choosing to support my wife to get through the pregnancy first. Then I'll deal with the rest of it. It's probably been the hardest thing I've ever done emotionally, but here we are. End of copied comment. I know I'm a sarcastic SOB in some of these comments, but honestly, thank you for everyone's concern, and I've gotten some good advice from people. Mostly, this has been a bit cathartic to write all this down, as most of my friends are toxic dudes who are more interested in fighting about golf or some other pointless crap. Love them, but I don't really have anyone other than her to talk to about any of this, so honestly, thank you. So I guess the jury's still out. Can't really weigh in too much until the results of that paternity test come back. And since he is adamant about people not harping on the fact that there might be a potential budding emotional affair going on, we're not even going to talk about that. And, maybe we'll get an update down the road and just make sure that he is in fact the daddy. Story 4. AIO boyfriend has been acting strange since finding out his ex is getting married. We've been together for 3 years. Before we got together, he dated his ex for 4 or 5 years. I don't know exactly. They broke up because of his job and he moved here. We started dating pretty soon, like a few months after they broke up, but he assured me he was over her. He never likes talking about her or their relationship at all. So I guess she got engaged recently and he found out from one of his friends who lives in his home state. And I've been shocked because he's really upset, acting out of character about it and not communicating with me at all. I pried it out of him because one day he came home with a bottle of hard liquor and drank whatever he drinks. And I kept saying, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And he just wanted to be in his office by himself. So eventually, later, after asking repeatedly, he tells me that it's a mind F and he never thought about her after dating him, but won't talk about it further. But he's still acting weird. Then 2 things happened that have made me very uncomfortable. He, out of the blue, started talking about going back to his home state to visit his stepfather. He's never brought this up before. They talk sometimes, but he's never shown interest in going back. So I said that would be cool. I'd love to go see your high school and where you grew up, and he said actually he was thinking of going solo just for a couple of days. So then last night after he goes to sleep, I got a weird feeling and went on his phone, and I found that he'd been asking friends from his old state to get him her new number because he wants to talk to her. And he says he wants to say congratulations, and one of his friends told him it's not a good idea, and he said he just really wants to talk to her. I feel hurt and devastated and even a little betrayed. Why does he have to say congratulations to someone who hasn't been in his life for years? Like, if they stayed friendly, I wouldn't have cared, but it's scaring me how much this is affecting him. I love him so much. I knew from early on he was the one, and I thought he thinks I'm the one too. Then another part of me thinks I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Everything has been perfect before this. I never felt like he hid things or that we had communication issues, but if he just wanted to say congrats, why wouldn't he add her on social media and tell me about it? And why does he suddenly want to go home suddenly now? And now I'm wondering why we've never talked about her, but we've talked about my exes and other girls he dated in high school and college. Let's read some relevant comments here. When told he wants to meet her for unfinished business. I just don't understand how he could have unfinished emotional business years later, and after he's been with me and we've gotten an apartment and a cat and been discussing marriage. Like, it's really out of character for him. This whole thing is. I just wish he would talk to me, and even if he said it brought up feelings he didn't realize he had, I'd be empathetic towards that. But trying to go home and contact her, and the consensus in these comments are making me feel like an idiot and so confused. Then here's an update. After reading through all the comments and digging myself out of the little pit of denial and self-pity I was in, I confronted my boyfriend with the phone messages and asked why he wanted to talk to his ex and why he suddenly wanted to visit his stepdad. He was trying to go see her and talk to her. I won't get into everything that was said because it's a lot, but broad strokes. He said he loves me and he hadn't thought about his ex in a long time on purpose. It was too painful, but he does consider her the one that got away. They broke up because he wanted to move for his job. Their relationship had been strained because he dedicated more time to building his career than to her. He said it brought back up a lot of painful feelings and memories, and he flipped. He said he loves me, but he still loves her. I asked him if she were to call him tomorrow and say come back to me, would you? And he said he can't tell me no. For the people concerned about the nature of the breakup, I talked to a friend of his on the phone. He was the one who wouldn't give her new number. He confirmed the details of the story my boyfriend gave me, and I even purposefully messed up some to see if he would correct me, and he did. Maybe I am more manipulative than I thought. Her getting a new number wasn't caused by my boyfriend, but they were solidly no contact. I asked the friend if he thought they'd be married now, if my boyfriend hadn't screwed the pooch, and he said yes. It's been a lot to process for me. I can't really think of anything else to update. Thanks for all the advice and comments on my previous post. Now let's read some more relevant comments here. User 1 says, I really hope you walked away from him now. He's literally telling you that you're in second place and always will be. You deserve better. OP says, yeah, but he's my first place. I don't want to put another man in my situation, but reversed. I know people think it sounds pathetic, but that's where I'm at right now. I'm not making any decisions, just processing. User 2 says, do you really want to stay with him knowing you're just a second choice backup? OP replies, I don't know. I know that's not the answer people want me to give, but I genuinely don't. So, I hate to say it, the comments, even though they came across as harsh, absolutely spit facts here. Total truth. Consider yourself fortunate that he was honest about this, but yeah, he basically told you, in no uncertain terms that you're the backup plan. You're second. He still is in love with his ex and can't promise that if some spark were to ignite between them that he wouldn't go back to her. You sticking around not only comes across as desperate, but you're also opening the door for him to hurt you even worse later down the line. Say he doesn't get back with her, but you stay with him. This is not something that's ever going to go away. You're always going to have those doubts, and so it's better to just go ahead and nip it in the bud now while you're still just a couple, not engaged, not married, don't have children, and, it'll suck in the short term, but your long-term mental well-being will be so much better if you ditch him now. Story 5. I just found out I was his dirty little secret. I had posted on this sub about this guy months/a year ago. I love talking to this man, but I could always tell he was being secretive. I had Googled him several times, did those record searches, but I couldn't find anything bad, so I just accepted it, thought he was private. Other things about him started to piss me off, but he reached out to me recently and I haven't responded. But I decided to do another search today, and guess what I find? A wedding gift registry. I feel so stupid and absolutely sick to my stomach. Worse, I feel bad for his fiancée. She's marrying a man soon who is unfaithful to her. He will probably bring home an STD to her. Luckily, I've never had sex with him. Even worse, in some of our conversations, he preached to me about black love, building family and wealth with a woman he loved, sharing success. He's successful in his own right. And here he is marrying a beautiful black woman and disrespecting her and their black love. I pray that he F's up worse so she can find out and leave. But of course, I feel sick that I wasted so much time on him. I thought he really liked me. I wonder how he hid his phone when he was texting me. Will I have to hire a PI next time to be safe when researching people initially? 'Cause damn. Anyway, if anyone has ever unwittingly been the other woman, tell me how to not feel sick anymore, 'cause wow, I've been holding back tears. Let's jump right into the relevant comments here. Commenter 1 says, these men are so deceitful, and they know all the right things to say. May I ask if it was just talking? Did he ever try to meet face to face? What was his objective? Did he say he wanted a relationship? I'm leery of men who want to talk and talk. I feel men use women as a free confidant and ego boost at times. OP says, he was definitely a talker. I got tired of talking and he could tell, so he was like, oh, we'll meet this day and do XYZ. Lo and behold, it never effing happened. I was done with him for a long time and didn't reach out. He reached out and I got a feeling to search him one more time. I certainly feel like I was an ego boost to him. I will never understand why people need to feel that because ultimately it's a waste of time. And this was in response to someone else's similar story. OP says, for the amount of time we were talking, I can't believe it. I don't know how to reach her, and I'm not even sure she'd believe me if I did. This really sucks, and I can't believe the audacity. This will definitely get easier with time, but I genuinely thought he was an honest man, and I'm not sure how I can trust while dating again. Another commenter says, that's one of the hardest parts is talking to the other woman because you never know if you'll end up being the bad guy. 9 times out of 10, she'll go back, so having a conversation with her might not even make a difference. OP replies, they're getting married very soon, so I highly doubt a random woman would be enough to call off the wedding. Plus, she's a catch and unsuspecting, so I don't think she would believe me. But I'm praying that should he continue to be unfaithful, she will find strong evidence and make a decision from there. And then this was to one of many stories like OP's. OP says, okay, you guys are making me consider it. He has my nudes as well, so I wanted to avoid any problems. But I have his nudes too and a bunch of other sexual messages, plus our plans. My instinct is still no, but I hate that she doesn't know. I'll think about it and talk about it with my therapist. create an account to message her and tell her specific details. OP replies, that's also something I'll consider. Maybe messaging her to look through his phone, search for my name, and recover any deleted messages. If he permanently deleted them, I can send screenshots, but I don't know her and I don't know if I can trust her not to get mad at me. Who cares if she gets mad? OP says, because I don't want to risk any blowback on me. Again, he has my pics and I'm being very cautious, but I'm very upset for me and for her, and I'll consider sending her the proof. But I need to be extra cautious and think of a safe way to do this. Another commenter says, I say go for it. The worst outcome is you get a rude response or blocked. The best outcome is that she's able to dodge a huge bullet. Since you don't have an existing relationship with her, you're not risking a friendship. OP replies, the worst thing is if my nudes end up online. Everything is faceless, but still, that's why I need to be careful. So I'll consider it and talk more to my therapist about it. I just took screenshots of everything, so I have the evidence saved. Advice. So he's cheating. I slept on it, and I think I may just send her an email. I think I found her work email and personal email. Do I send her from my own email address? Do I create a new one? Will that risk the email being sent to spam? The email will also include 50 plus photos, though I have way more. Will that trigger the system to send the email to spam? I need advice about how to go about this. I also want it to be anonymous, but I'm not sure how that's possible since the screenshots include my email. Should I still create a new account? Now let's read some more relevant comments here. This is a commenter that was part of a longer comment. Personally, I might wait to send all the photos instead of putting them in the first email so it's not overwhelming to her, and will make it less likely for spam filters to cause issues. Put a few damning ones in and let her know you're going to send her all the images in another email. OP replies, that's true, I'll select 5 to 10 photos. In the email drafted, which is long, I included the timeline, ways to search for/recover the messages on her end if she searches her phone, then a last parting message. Should I cut that down? And the screenshots are of text messages. I feel like it would be weird to redact my name. Commenter replies, if it were me, I would just send a short email to her personal email and let her know you have screenshots if she would like to see them. Do not send to her work email. For one, lots of companies, IT checks emails, and second, I would legit throw up seeing that, so I don't want it happening at work. OP replies, that's true, I'll only send it to her personal email, and I'll think more on creating a new email. And then later OP clarifies, so I included the timeline and screenshots and how to contact me, but I also gave her a lot of information on how to search his phone to find me. I ended up going to the new email and number. I sent my main email a test to see if it would go through, and it did. But yeah, I gave her detailed instructions on what to search for in his phone to find me, how to recover recently deleted messages, and to check his email. Anyway, I thought it'd be more believable if detailed. And then here's a mini update that came in the comments. I told her, and she responded. She didn't know, and they had been dating for way longer than I assumed. Luckily, her anger wasn't directed towards me. IDK what will happen in the next few days/weeks, but hopefully I can just give her the evidence and stay the F out of it. Now here's update 2. I logged back in and saw a reply to my other post that reminded me of this. So, using the advice I got, I made a new Gmail account and Google number. I sent her an initial email explaining who I was, the condensed timeline, how to search his phone for me and recover deleted messages, and if she wanted to contact me, she could, as well as about 10 photos that got at the gist of it. She called me that night. I explained the situation again and how I got her information. She said to send all my evidence her way. She seemed to believe me. Of course, she wasn't happy with me, but she was not angry with me either. She told me they'd been together for 10 years. My screenshots are damning by themselves, but she described some encounters with other women that were definitely within those 10 years. Anyway, I sent everything I got. I haven't heard back, so I have no idea if they still got married or whatever. I will always wonder, but it's not my business anymore. I feel bad for her and I pity him. You have everything and you manage to still be a pathetic loser. Like, why are you reaching out to me so close to your wedding? I was upset, but I'm happy I told her because I would have felt so guilty. I'm also happy because I get to easily leave him behind in the past and move on to things I'm so excited about. Let's read more relevant comments here. Commenter says, hopefully she calls off the wedding and moves on. 10 years is a long time to waste on someone who obviously doesn't care but is too comfortable to move on. I really hope she finds happiness, and I'm really glad that you spoke up." And OP replies, "I sent the messages with the expectation that she would stay regardless. I highly suspect that he's the breadwinner, and I know they just bought a house together too. So I really don't know if she stayed, but she had the right to know instead of walking in blind. I hope she finds happiness and peace, whatever that may look like." Commenter replies, "Ah, I see. Yeah, those situations are very sticky, especially when their lives are intertwined like that. Not gonna lie, situations that I've witnessed at home and in other people's lives really keep me motivated to always have my own money and an exit plan, cause you never know." OP replies, "I definitely agree. I learned a lot about red flags, not to ignore, but also some secondary lessons. Pursue a career that makes me a lot of money, cause you never know, and never feel envious of these long-term relationships, because you never know what's going on behind the scenes. This guy very much presents as the good man, because clearly he's not." And then to someone asking for an update on July 5th, 2024. "I doubt there will be updates. Neither of them will likely reach out, and IDK if they got married or separated." And then one final post by OP. "Hi, shocked to see myself on this sub. I'm the OP. The other person explained it well, but I want to be clear. I'm not against interracial dating. I'll probably do it in the future, and I have a lot of family members who have dated and married interracially. I mainly brought it up because it was shocking considering his values. A lot of people want and believe in black love, specifically because of systemic racism that has torn down relationships and stability within the black community, and also to continue the culture. So to go and create instability within his own relationship was mind-boggling." It really isn't a whole lot to say here. I mean, she did the right thing by letting the fiance, future wife know. And then once you send what evidence or proof that you have, just rinse your hands of it and be done with it. It's not your business anymore. It's not your problem. So while we as viewers/listeners appreciate the updates, there's really not a whole lot else to it. And I don't think we're going to get anything more. So good for you. Move on. Story 6. I found something I wasn't supposed to in my BF's travel bag. I, 28F, have been with my boyfriend, 29M, for almost 5 years. Our anniversary is next month. My boyfriend often travels for work, but most of his business trips are typically 3 to 5 days. A few weeks ago, he let me know that his work travel will be increasing for the rest of the year, including him being gone for most of next month, as well as almost 2 months at the end of the year. The most time we've spent apart is 2 weeks, so I was sad to hear he'd be gone for so long, but I understand it's necessary for his job. We went out of town together this past weekend before his business trip, and he prepped his belongings so he wouldn't have to repack before heading out for work this morning. We got home Sunday. He flew out for work Monday at 6 a.m. and will be gone for work most of this coming month, aside from a few small weekend trips we have together. He hasn't acted strangely at all with his belongings, and has been acting completely normal in our day-to-day lives. The other morning while he wasn't in our hotel room, I grabbed his toiletry bag that was packed in his suitcase to steal his deodorant. I prefer to use his over mine, hee, and saw something I wasn't prepared to see. In his bag was a small white box. I was still half asleep when I grabbed the deodorant, so at that moment I didn't give it a second thought. But later on, I realized what I saw and thought to myself, did I dream, or was that actually what I thought it was? So unless this man has a whole secret life that I know nothing about, unlikely, I may soon become a fiancé. I can't tell anyone about this because I don't want anyone to know that I ruined my own surprise over some deodorant. I will update if I was right. Otherwise, we'll be having a whole other conversation, lol. Edits for context. I likely won't have any updates for a couple of weeks. He's traveling for work for the next month. We have a couple of small weekend getaways during this time, so I will likely only see him for a couple days at a time in the next month. No, I didn't look in the box, so I'm not assuming anything at this point. Update. He proposed! And of course I said yes. I'll save all the sappy details, but yes, the ring was for me. He was trying to find the perfect moment during our last trip, which is why he had the ring, but nothing felt special enough for him. I'm a fiancé. Thank y'all for the kind words, and even the not so kind. They kept me entertained. I'm glad I could share some light and good news. Now let's read relevant comments here. User 1 says, plot twist, BF is an international jewel thief. OP says, adding this to my list of highly possible explanations. User 2 says, Reddit crazy coming in hot. He has a whole other life/girlfriend, and the days he isn't with you, he's with her. So let's see if she gets the ring, you do, or you both do. Hopefully that's totally a joke and you have a beautiful life with him. OP says, I would have thought my multiple personalities would have been enough to keep him invested. Haha. User 3 replies, well, did you peek into the little white box? Because, not to ruin it, but I definitely thought I saw a ring box once and it turned out to be earrings. I did eventually get a ring from that same guy and we've been married almost 20 years, but it was nowhere near when I saw said box. OP says, I didn't look inside. It didn't feel right to do that. I was tempted though. Maybe it's a necklace. Maybe it's a ring. Maybe it's just a really cool rock. I wouldn't be upset at a really cool rock now that I think about it. Earrings would be out of the question since I wear gauges. So happy to hear you eventually got that ring. Almost 20 years is beautiful. I wish you lots of love and many more great memories together. User 4 says, so my question, OP, if the item is for you, why is he taking it with him on his travels? Word of advice, upon his return, check the duffel. If it's missing. OP says, if it is a gift for me, regardless of what is inside, it would make sense that he has it with him since we live together and he likely didn't want me finding it at home by mistake. Plus, he's traveling during the week for most of next month, with the exception of a couple small weekend getaways we have planned together, so he isn't going to be home much. Only time will tell if it isn't for me, but for now, I don't feel the need to look through his belongings. Update. Hello online friends, the long-awaited update is here. If you haven't seen my other post, here's a summary. Take the title at face value, except what I found was a small white box in my boyfriend's toiletry bag while I was looking for deodorant. A box that could have had a piece of small jewelry inside. I didn't open the box because 1, I was half asleep and didn't realize what I saw until afterward, and 2, I didn't go back to be nosy about it. But on to the update. He proposed. He had originally planned on proposing during that trip since we were traveling with our photographer friend. Completely unrelated trip, so I wouldn't have expected it either way. But my best friend had pointed out that my nails weren't done. Shout out to her, but I also wouldn't have cared either way, so he decided to hold off. As I had mentioned, he was going to be away for work a total of about a month, so as some had warned, there's no side chick. Although if that ever changes, I'll let y'all know, lol. He was traveling with the ring since we had a couple small getaways planned in between his work schedule, and he ended up proposing the next weekend while we were completely alone, and it was perfect. I'm a strong believer in the universe and everything happening for a reason. The ring is beautiful, and I could not be happier. I even found the perfect rock during this trip that I will cherish forever. Thank you all for the kind comments and encouragements. This man treats me like a princess, and I'm so very excited to spend the rest of our lives together. He's truly something special, and I plan to give him the world for the rest of my days. So happy I could give you all a positive update. As some had mentioned, it felt like a breath of fresh air to read a lighthearted story on here. And then let's read a couple more comments here. User 5 says, that's awesome, congratulations. User 6 says, yay, so happy it turned out to be a proposal. Yeah, this is just a nice feel-good story to kind of break up the sadness and depression that we've kind of been touching on recently. So good for you. Glad that, it wasn't anything crazy beyond what you assumed it was going to be, which was an engagement ring, and congratulations to both of you. That's great. Story 7. Am I the a-hole for not letting my ex-husband's new girlfriend have a piece of his mother's jewelry? Throwaway, cause family follows my main. I, 40F, and my ex, we'll call him Joe, 41M, were high school sweethearts. Started dating when we were 17, married at 19, and divorced 20 years later, so going on 2 years now. We have an amazing daughter, Sarah, who's 8, and has adjusted really well to the separation. Joe and I get along great. The divorce was amicable and we're still good friends. Not like we hang out alone or anything, but we don't argue or fuss at each other, help each other out, and just overall have each other's backs because at the end of the day, our number one priority will always be Sarah and doing what's best for her. We've both moved on and are in serious long-term relationships with other people. His girlfriend, Lily, 46F, is great and really good for him. I've never had any contact with her and enjoy spending time with her when we all get together for holidays and other important events or celebrations. Until last week. Joe's parents passed away within a month of each other last summer, and it was devastating for all of us. Even though Joe and I have already been divorced for about a year, they still treated me like family and I loved them dearly. Joe and Lily hadn't started dating yet, so she never met them, which is a shame. They were incredible people. Long story to get to the point, but I feel like the background is important. Last week, Sarah got a box in the mail from her aunt who is responsible for dividing up my late mother-in-law's jewelry amongst the kids and grandkids. She had a huge collection of both costume and more expensive fine jewelry. I let Joe know about it, and he explained that some of it was left to me, so when he would come over and we sort through it together. Lily came with him, which is fine. It was extremely difficult, and we were both very emotional, so I'm glad she was there to support him. Here's where I think I may be the a-hole. As we were going through the jewelry, we had pulled out a couple of cheaper pieces of costume jewelry for Sarah to have now, and I had picked out a couple of rings, a necklace, and 3 pairs of earrings to keep, knowing that they will eventually go to Sarah as well. Joe and I agreed that the rest of it would be put away in the lockbox that we each have a key to at my house and would stay there until Sarah is older and it goes to her. One of the pieces being put away is a beautiful set of ruby and diamond earrings and necklace that are obviously very real and we believe were passed down from Joe's grandmother. Lily had been admiring the set and making comments about how well it would go with the wedding dress she had been looking at. They aren't engaged, or even with some of her date night outfits. Joe didn't say anything to her in response, and when she put them down, I wrapped them back up and put them, along with the rest of the jewelry, in the lockbox. Since then, Lily has texted me multiple times asking about them and if she can just borrow them. At one point, she accused me of just wanting them for myself and pointed out that Joe and I were divorced and I didn't have any right to keep them. She has also said that when they get married, the jewelry will legally be a part of their marital assets anyway, so I'm just putting off the inevitable. I'm not planning on wearing them, per my agreement with Joe. I'll wear the pieces I picked out and the rest will stay put away for Sarah. I have zero intention of taking any of it out unless it's necessary, and even then, I'll let Joe know what's going on with it. Joe's been radio silent and I haven't said anything because I don't want to cause any conflict that could have an impact on Sarah. So am I the a-hole for not giving in and letting Lily have some of the jewelry meant for my daughter? Let's read relevant comments here. User 1 says, "She's a pushy thing, isn't she? This is a big red flag, and I hope your ex sees it as such. The greed is really disgusting." OP replies, "It's just so bizarre that this is happening now. She's been amazing since they started dating and has been great in taking things slowly with Sarah and building a relationship with both her and I. It's been nothing but green flags up to now, and I was so happy that he found someone that seemed so good for him and that makes him so happy. I don't want to cause issues between them, but this is definitely concerning, and if it's her true colors showing, she isn't someone I want around my daughter." User 2 replies, "It might be telling that Joe has been radio silent during this back and forth with Lily. He may just not want to get involved in it, or knows that the jewelry was willed to Sarah. The fact that Lily said it would be great to wear to her wedding and will be marital assets when she and Joe get married is delusional. She and Joe aren't even engaged. Unless I missed something in the story, doesn't all the jewelry legally belong to Sarah?" OP says, "I know they've talked about marriage, but there hasn't been any kind of proposal or anything beyond that. Prior to this happening, I was thrilled over the idea of them getting married. Lily has been great for my ex and for Sarah up until now. I'm pretty upset that she may be showing her true colors now, and I hope that's not the case. The jewelry was left to Sarah with the notation that I could choose what I wanted from it because MIL had specified that I could choose anything I wanted as long as they will eventually end up with Sarah. There's zero possibility of it not going to her when I pass or before if she wants it when she's older. She's my only child and will eventually inherit all of my assets." This is OP on if Joe and Lily are engaged, married, or neither. OP says, "No, not engaged. Marriage has been discussed between them, but that's as far as it's gone. I was excited about the prospect until all this. I'm glad it's not just me being weird about this. It's not like she was asking about a piece of costume jewelry that doesn't have quite as much sentimental value, but about family heirloom pieces that have been passed down. Sarah's too young right now to really appreciate all of that, but she had a very good relationship with her grandmother. Even after the divorce, we FaceTimed weekly, and I know how much it will mean to her to have when she's older." And then this is OP on who has legal rights to the jewelry and how does OP and Joe's roles play in this when the jewelry is placed in the safe. To this, OP replies, "The jewelry was left to Sarah and I. I was allowed to pick what I wanted from what was sent because there's no question that it will be left to Sarah when I pass, or given to her before then once she's older. I don't have any other kids or stepkids, so Sarah will inherit all my assets in the future, including the pieces that MIL left to me. Since it was his mom's, I felt like it was right for him to be there when I sorted through it. If there had been anything that he wanted to keep with him, I wouldn't have objected at all because while my MIL and I were close, and it does belong to Sarah now, that was his mom. He and his parents had an amazing relationship, and I would never have said anything he couldn't have something of hers as long as we stuck to the agreement that everything eventually goes to Sarah since that's who it's all intended to go to. I was trying to do the right thing since we're still friends, and I know how hard it was for him to lose his parents. At the time, I was genuinely thankful that Lily was there for emotional support because it was so hard to see pieces that my MIL wore frequently and treasured. It was just that punch in the gut reminder that she's gone and how much she's missed. When his dad passed, Joe and his brother inherited a very large collection of firearms with instructions to divide it up amongst their other siblings and the grandchildren as they saw fit. FIL and I were close, although not as close as MIL and I were. So when the time came, Joe asked me to pick out something from his share of the collection to keep as a reminder of his dad, and with the understanding that it will eventually be given to Sarah. I need to call the aunt that sent the jewelry and confirm, but I suspect it was a similar setup. The jewelry was left to the girls to be divided up and distributed as they saw fit. Joe was told that it was being sent to Sarah, but there was no mention of any of the jewelry being set aside for him or his brother specifically. Now we get an update post. So many of you have asked for an update, so here it is really quick. I wrote this out yesterday and figured out that it was probably better to make a new post than edit the other one with it. So yeah, here's what's going on. Joe took an extended lunch yesterday and came by the house with Lily. I explained to him why I was reluctant to bring everything up, but I was tired of being harassed about the jewelry and that I feel strongly about it belonging to Sarah, not to either of us and certainly not to Lily. He agreed immediately and was shocked to find out that she had been asking about it and then angry when I showed him the messages. I figured the best course of action was a face-to-face conversation with him and being able to hand him my phone so he could see the conversation for himself, and there would be no way for her to accuse me of making it up or photoshopping or anything. It sucked to see him so upset over it, and I have a feeling that it's going to get worse because from what he was saying, it sounds like Lily won't be around much longer, and regardless, she won't be allowed back in my home and won't be spending any time with Sarah alone if he doesn't break up with her. I did also go first thing yesterday morning to an open safe deposit box at one of the local banks. It's not the one I normally do business with, and as of right now, my name is the only one on it, and I have the only key. I was worried about the possibility of Lily having any kind of access to the jewelry with it being in the house, and until all of that is resolved, I feel better knowing that there's no way for her to get to it. Joe and I also discussed this when he came over, and he said that he agrees completely that it's the best course of action to safeguard Sarah's inheritance. All but one of the pieces I picked also went in, and as much as I would love to have a couple of the other pieces to wear in remembrance of her on the really hard days, I would rather know it's safe and I still have the one piece that brings me so much comfort. All kinds of notarized documents will be on their way to me and should be here by the end of the week when I have a meeting set up with a lawyer to determine what else needs to be done to ensure that the jewelry will go to Sarah without any issues or challenges. I spoke to the aunt that sent everything over the weekend after I posted this and got so much good advice, thank you all, and requested she send copies of everything pertaining to it along with documentation from her as the executor of what was sent to who, etc. I didn't tell her about the issues with Lily. I don't think that's my place, and I'll let Joe deal with telling his family or not as he sees fit. I have an appointment later today with a GIA certified appraiser, so I should be able to take all of that with me to the lawyer, as well as the pictures and video that I took of each piece last night. I'm still leaning towards a trust as the best way to make sure Sarah's interests and assets are protected, but we'll see what the lawyer says and go from there. I feel terrible for Joe. He's a great guy, and even though our marriage didn't work out, I still care about him and always will. He's not just my child's father, but also one of my best friends, and I want him to find someone to be with that loves him the way he deserves to be loved. It's just that whoever that is needs to understand that Sarah is always going to come first, and he and I will always work as a team to make sure that she's happy, healthy, and successful in life. Our relationships with each other and other people aren't going to hinder her in any way. Thank you to everyone who commented and offered so much good advice and support. I really do appreciate it, all of it more than I can tell you. I didn't expect this to blow up the way it did, and it's really overwhelming to be honest. I probably won't update anymore or add anything else to this, so thank you again. And then let's read a couple more relevant comments to close out here. User 5 says, "You guys seem to make a great team for Sarah. She's going to grow up very well loved." And user 6 says, "Honestly, Lily's not entitled to that jewelry, and you're right to keep it safe. Joe's obviously backing you up, so it sounds like you handled this with both grace and smarts. Props to you." All-star parenting right here. That's what you do when you've got kids. You put your child or children first, and any kind of miscellaneous or extracurricular drama has to be put on the back burner. So it's great to see that even though this couple's divorced, they're still totally on the same page and support each other in supporting their child. There's no disagreement there. They know that they have to put the young one first. And so that's really cool and selfless. And if it wasn't obvious to answer the question, no, not the a-hole. Story 8. Am I the a-hole for not comforting my brother after his wife cheated on him again? About 9 years ago, my brother's wife left him for another man. She was cheating on him all that time. My brother was devastated. They had married very young. I was always against it. I had my brother in my apartment for months. He had fallen into a severe depression, and I was the one who paid for his psychologist since he didn't have money and even lost his job because he didn't even want to move from the couch or bath. I even gave him a bath. I wasn't bothered by that. I did everything for my brother. She just left and blocked him from everywhere. She simply confessed to him that she had been cheating on him for a year and that she was in love with that man. 4 years after that, when my brother was finally starting to feel better, she reappeared in everyone's life. The typical thing happened. She and her lover were no longer together. She'd begun to receive psychological help and changed completely. She felt regretful, she was really sorry, etc. I told my brother all the time to cut off contact with her for the sake of his mental health. He didn't. I always had a bad feeling that I could smell the crap from afar. He started to justify her past actions all the time by saying that she changed, they were too young, she was having problems, etc., and he got angry when I told him that she's still a female dog. Shortly after that, they got back together, and my brother cut off all contact with me because I didn't accept their relationship and he didn't want anyone to come between them. I told him to F off and we didn't talk anymore. Now my brother has reappeared at my house after years without him wanting to talk to me, only to tell me that his wife cheated on him again, but this time they have children. In the past, I would have let him in, hugged him and everything, but he's gone years without even inviting me to meet his children. He's not even spoken to me to congratulate me on my marriage or my pregnancy. I even invited him to my wedding and he didn't come. I told him that at this moment, I can't let him be in my house, which is actually true because I can't have that kind of stress. He told me that we are siblings and he needs me, but I told him that I needed him too, but he was never there and he cut me off for that woman. We had an argument and my husband ended up kicking him out because I was already crying. He's staying with our parents now and my mother just tells me it's not the time to hold a grudge against him and he needs me, but I can't forget how he didn't think twice before cutting off all contact with me for her. Now let's read some relevant comments here. Not understanding why people go back to cheaters like that. OP replies, I don't understand it either, but the truth is that he had never gotten over that relationship. My brother went back to her because she basically sweetened his ears with things like that she was getting psychological help, that she was sorry for everything. She even came to tell me that she was really sorry for everything. Then another commenter that was downvoted said, you were way too involved in your brother's life. You bathed him because he was depressed? OP replies, way too involved? No, I was giving him the support he needed. Some people are so depressed that they even need help bathing. I'm a nurse. I've taken care of people in the same state or even people who needed help eating or brushing their teeth. Update. I've spoken to my mother because she kept trying to persuade me to talk to my brother. She came to me since I cannot move too much. She basically told me that my brother is very sorry, and I told her that he should tell me that and not her. But my mother replied that my brother is too embarrassed about his actions. But I told her that I'm not going to let her be any kind of mediator, and my brother's old enough to speak for himself. I know he was sending her to insist that I talk back to him. My brother is an adult and can speak for himself. That said, 2 days ago, my brother came to my house to talk about everything. He told me something that I always knew, which is that he never got over his ex-wife and he was always totally blind to her, and believed that all of us who were against him coming back to her were toxic, and so he should cut us out of his life because we were an obstacle that didn't believe people can change, so that's what he did with me, block me from his life. He said that he feels ashamed of himself for having been so blind since she cheated on him again. I never told him I told you so, nor am I going to, because he already knows that. There were many people worried about whether their children were his, but I can assure everyone that they are. They look identical to him, and luckily, she was maybe faithful at that time. Anyway, after talking, he apologized to me and told me he needs me, but I told him the same thing as that day. I needed him too, and he was never there. I forgave him for everything, but that doesn't mean I want to go back to everything being like before, because I don't want to put myself in that situation again. He didn't even tell me what he's going to do with his wife, and I don't want the situation to repeat. I never did anything expecting something in return, but it did hurt me a lot. I never did anything expecting something in return, but it did hurt me a lot that he turned his back on me without thinking twice, and only came back when things got bad for him. I had invited him to my wedding, maybe foolishly believing that he would come, but he didn't even do that. I even kept a seat for him, thinking he was maybe coming late, and I feel really dumb for doing that. I told him I'm sorry, but I want things to continue as before since I got used to not having him in my life, and I don't trust that he won't use me as a nurse and therapist anymore. At first he didn't understand it and said that we're siblings and we should be united, but when I told him that he forgot that for years, he shut up. So that's it. I simply told him that I prefer to continue without contact with him as before, and I've made it clear to my brother that I want to spend these months peacefully. Maybe some will call me cruel and say I should think about my family, but I'm not going to let him treat me like she treated him. Now let's read another relevant comment here to a heavily downvoted commenter in a back and forth exchange with a lot of assumptions on the commenter's part, only included because I liked OP's response. OP says, I'm going to tell you just one thing because I'm not interested in reading your comment. Adult people talk about things face to face and don't hide behind their mother. Are you the a-hole here, OP? No, you're not. Your brother is the a-hole, if there is one. The first lap around, nothing wrong with it. He got cheated on, had his heart broken, fell into a depression. You welcomed him into your home. You took care of him, kind of nursed him back to health, both physically and emotionally. And as soon as the going wasn't tough anymore, he left you high and dry. Not only went back to your ex, ignored your advice and your counsel, but then had the nerve to cut off all contact with you, not show up to your wedding, not congratulate you on your pregnancy or your own marriage, and then as soon as the wind blew the other way and he got cheated on again, then he comes crawling back. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And then to send mommy to go be the messenger, the mediator between you two? No. OP, you're not the a-hole. I would have done the same thing. Family or not, it may get better eventually, but he needs to learn that he can't treat people like that, least of all his family. Story 9. I, 37M, want to try and get back with the one who got away, 36F. Is there any chance of that happening? I've been tearing myself apart just thinking about her and how things ended. I can't stop no matter how much I try. This is going to be a long post, and I know I'm writing a lot of rambling and nonsense. When I, 37M, was 20, I met the most beautiful woman, Lila, who was 19 at the time. She was beautiful both inside and out. She had the most gorgeous dark brown hair that looked red and purple when the light hit it just right. These golden brown eyes and lashes that looked like a doll's, freckles on her rosy plump cheeks, and a single dimple when she smiled a certain way. She was a year younger than me, but yet she was always so much smarter and mature in every aspect. We dated for 2 years. I met her parents, and her no-nonsense cop father finally gave me the stank eye at first. But he grew to like me. Her mom adored me right off the bat, always commenting on how my green eyes complemented her daughter's golden brown eyes in the most romantic way. I still don't fully understand what that means, but I like the compliment. Her younger siblings loved playing in the backyard with me. She met my parents and my 2 brothers, and they all loved her right off the bat. My younger brother was the same age as her, and they were going to college together and would help each other study in some of the shared classes their majors had. Hell, even my 6-month-old dog I had adopted before even meeting her seemed to like her more than he liked me. She told me her dreams and how she wanted to own a home that was tucked away from everything but not completely isolated. How she wanted to be a doctor and that she wanted to help people. She wanted to be a pediatrician. She loved kids. She always said she wanted a family. She didn't care how many kids she had. She just wanted to experience the ups and downs of motherhood. She wanted the good, the bad, the ugly. I listened to her go on and on about baby names and how she would design a nursery. At the time, I thought I wanted kids too. I wanted to marry this girl and give her the family she so clearly wanted. She was my Lila. I wanted to stay with her forever. I was young, but I was in love with her. After 2 years of dating, I started to realize that I didn't want to have kids. I thought I was just being around too many of my bratty cousins, and that was turning me off from the idea. But the more I thought about it, the more the idea of having to be a father made me sick. I would get headaches and my stomach would twist in knots thinking about having to take care of some screaming, crying, and crapping little thing, and then have it grow into a tantrum-throwing toddler, a bratty child, and then some moody teenager. I didn't want to be held down like that. I wanted to travel, have money, be free. After a few drinks one night, I ended up telling all of this to Lila. I remember she went quiet and simply said, "I won't try to change your mind, but I'm not giving up my dreams." I remember scoffing and rolling my eyes, telling her that we weren't going to have kids. She stood up from the couch and said, "You might not want that anymore, but I still do. I'm not going to try and force either one of our minds to change. Then one of us will end up miserable." I realized she was breaking up with me, and even though she was so calm and mature about it, I remember feeling so angry. She was walking around the apartment gathering her things and being completely silent. I kept arguing with her, trying to change her mind. I kept telling her that it was stupid to want kids, that they were annoying and a waste of time. When she still didn't budge, I started to insult her. I said she was stupid, that she was a weak woman for wanting to be a mom, that she should just give up on being a doctor so she could push out her brats. Lila finally started to respond to me, telling me to calm down, that we simply wanted different things in life and that was okay. I hated her in that moment, that she wasn't agreeing with me. I remember punching the wall of our apartment, kicking the door, throwing anything I could get my hands on. She watched me wreck our living room and kitchen, not saying a word. She walked past me and left. This whole thing happened over a few hours. In less than a day, I lost the love of my life, and my apartment was now trashed. Of course, news of why we broke up and my reaction to it reached my family. My mom cried hearing how I reacted. My dad gave me the coldest look I've ever seen. My brothers both said I was an idiot, with my younger brother saying I was lucky Lila hadn't called the cops on me during that. That was 15 years ago. I've tried to have relationships since, but they've never lasted more than a few weeks. I travel around for work, but now I'm back in the same town Lila lives in. Lila got married, got her doctorate, had kids, and is still a pediatrician last I heard. I know my younger brother still kept some contact with her in the first few years after the breakup. He even invited her to his wedding, but she declined because she didn't want to cause drama. I'm back in her town, the town we both grew up in, dated in, lived in, and where she currently lives. I can't stop thinking about her. I miss her so much right now. I miss her sweet perfume that smelled like a bakery, her strawberry shampoo, the way her hair looks in the light. She's 36 now, and I want to reach out to her and make amends with her. I want to hold and hug her one last time, to tell her I love her and I'm sorry. I don't know if that's a good idea, but a part of me needs closure. I don't know what to do. I want to sweep her off her feet and have her be my love again, but I don't know if that ship has sailed already. Update 1. I recently reached out to an ex-girlfriend of mine to see about meeting up and catching up on life. I didn't expect her to respond to me as we ended on bad terms. She responded, and we ended up messaging for a while and did some catching up. I finally asked her if she'd be willing to see me in person, and she said she'd be willing to meet up with me. I'm over the moon, but I'm also nervous about going on a date with her. She's 36 and I'm 37, and our last time being on dates with one another was close to 15 years ago. Our date is tomorrow evening after she gets off work. I'm scared I'll mess things up again. I already feel like she's being too generous with me by even agreeing to speak to me again, let alone see me in person. But I'll take any chance I can to try and make things right with her. I can't shake this horrible feeling in the back of my throat that I'll mess something up, that I'll just end up more heartbroken than before, that I'll come on too strong and she won't want to see me ever again. I've bought her favorite flowers for her. I've already made sure to start re-wearing her favorite cologne of mine from all those years ago. I've been practicing what I need and what I want to say to her. I have no idea how this date's going to go, but I just need to type out these feelings of nervousness I have. Update 2. Following my last post, I reached out to Lila. I had to. I know a lot of people wanted me to never contact her again, despite how much I wanted to make amends with her. So I reached out to her, and she responded and we chatted back and forth a bit. After a bit of this, I asked her if she wanted to meet up, and basically let her set all the ground rules. She agreed, and 3 days ago we went out on a date. She is just as beautiful as she was when we were together. Her figure filled out, and she finally lost the baby fat on her face. But she's still the same woman I fell in love with all those years ago. We sat down and talked. I didn't want to talk much about myself, but she asked about my life, so I had to. She asked about my job, my family, how I'd been, Typical catching up stuff. I'll admit, I was zoned out for most of this, and I was operating on autopilot to keep my nerves from taking over. I just wanted to grab her and hold her, kiss her, make her mine again. I don't think I realized just how much I missed her until she was right in front of me. Finally, when she was done asking about me, I finally got to ask about her and how she's been. She got married 11 years ago, so 4 years after our breakup. She has 2 daughters, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. I saw how happy she was when we talked about them, and I couldn't help but feel jealous and guilty. I should have been the one to have children with her, but I was stupid, and now she had kids with someone that wasn't me. I asked about her husband, and turns out she's a widow. He died 7 years ago while she was pregnant with her youngest. It was unexpected according to her, but that she's done her best to move on and hold herself together and appear unaffected by it for her daughters. I asked her if she was seeing anyone, and she said no. I asked her if she ever thought about me after our breakup, and she got vague with her answers. I told her she could tell me blunt what she was thinking. Lila said that she was very depressed after our breakup. She had built a future of us in her head, and she felt like I broke it on a whim with no warning. She said she lost her first real relationship and all the dreams she had with me when we broke up. She admitted that she had been so attached and in love with me that for a while she almost tried to convince herself she didn't want kids. But no matter what she did, she couldn't stop herself from wanting to be a mom, and she knew that if she gave that up voluntarily, she'd be miserable for the rest of her life. I asked her if I scared her that night, if she felt threatened by me at all. She said the yelling overwhelmed her, and while the commotion frightened her, she wouldn't say she feared for her safety or life, so that gave me hope. I apologized to her about how we broke up, and told her I regretted everything I did and said that night. She said she had moved on and forgiven me years ago. She always was a very forgiving and kind person, part of the reason I fell in love with her in the first place. I asked her if she was willing to give me another chance and let me back in her life. She was hesitant and got quiet for a moment. I could feel myself panicking when that happened. She said that she didn't mind me being in her life, but that I'd have to regain her trust in order for her to even consider trying to date me. I was disappointed, frustrated, and very disheartened, but I knew if I came on too strong, she'd turn me away completely. I told her I'd be happy to be in her life any way that I can, and that with her permission, I'd be working to prove I deserved a second chance at romance. I'm happy to have Lila semi back in my life, and I'm going to work on proving to her that we should get back together. I hope that we can have the family and life she always talked to me about. I know that there's still time, but the clock is ticking on it. I'm hoping that one day I'll be posting for advice on the family we'll have together, if all things go well. So I, along with probably most other people reading the initial story, were probably just screaming internally, "Don't do it! Don't go back to her! Oh my gosh, what are you thinking?" But it turns out that not only is she receptive to it, but, unfortunately she's a widow and, maybe needs that comfort to recomplete their family, and, what better way than to go back to what was formerly a safe place for you. So this is one of the rare cases where I think exes getting back together may work, but again, it's been 15 years, and now there's kids involved, kids that aren't OOPs, so it's very tricky. I think that they need to kind of ease their way into it, and he definitely needs to prove himself, because there's no excuse for how he acted. Absolutely ridiculous implosion there. And even now, just reading about how he reacted to her not immediately accepting him right back, and he's like, "I'm frustrated and angry and disappointed." It's like, dude, you screwed up royally. You really don't deserve a second chance, so be grateful that this woman is so awesome and mature that she's even willing to give you the time of day. Work with her, let her set the ground rules, and go from there. Story 10. Would I be the a-hole if I broke up with my girlfriend because she found God and won't stop trying to force her religion onto me? I've been dating my girlfriend Laura for about 2 years now. Laura has always told me she's an atheist. I am as well, so it was pretty easy to just not have any religious discussions at home. Well, a couple of months ago, Laura started going to church services with her friend Sarah. Sarah is a friend of Laura's from childhood, and their difference in religious beliefs had always been a point of friction. But Laura had wanted to ease that friction by going to a few services with Sarah. Well, after a couple weeks, I noticed a pretty drastic change in Laura. She started to reference God more often and even had a Bible on her nightstand. She got a cross necklace and started to not only go to Sunday services, but to some events the church held during the week with Sarah. Again, all of this was fine with me, I basically had Sunday mornings to myself in the house so I could play games and do whatever. The issue came when Sarah made some comment one Sunday morning about how I need to come with them. I politely declined. I've been turning down church invites from my super religious family for years, so it's a reflex at this point. They left, but later that night, Laura and I were talking, and she started pressuring me to go to church with her and Sarah. I've been through conversations like this before, again, my upbringing, and I made it clear to her that while I have no problem with her newfound faith, I would not be sharing it. She gave up, but was very cold towards me for a few days before she apologized and we made up. Well, a few weeks later, Sarah asked me again, and I give her a polite but firm no, as this is starting to annoy me. Laura came back from church and seemed in a really good mood. She made me my favorite meal and we talked about her day and it was nice. Then abruptly she started weeping and telling me how she was terrified of me spending an eternity in hell and how I need to find God like she did because she didn't want to lose me to Satan. At this point I was fed up with it. I didn't escape my abusive religious family just to have it happen to me all over again. Laura has been cold with me ever since, and every time I try to talk to her, she says, "There's nothing to discuss until you're willing to go to church." So, at this point, I think I might just need to break up with her. I feel bad because if we break up, I'm moving out. I'm not on the lease, so Laura will be stuck paying in full for her place without me, but I cannot stand the idea of living with her after we break up. I just want as clean a break as I can get here. Would I be the a-hole for just breaking up with her and leaving? Let's read some relevant comments here. User 1 says, "NTA, you can't just make a huge change like that and coerce others into doing the same. Leave, friend." User 2 says, "NTA, you get to make your own decisions, for church and anything else. Real dick move on her part. Nothing to discuss until you come to church. Bye, Felicia." User 3 replies, "Yep, girl played hardball and expected nice food and maybe some sex to make it work." User 4 replies, "It's crazy how manipulative religious superstition makes people. She even faked being in a super good mood to try and blindside him with happiness. Reminds me of the speech Stan gives at the end of the Mormons episode in South Park. They just use fake kindness as a recruiting tool." Another commenter says, "Info, did you move in together with the agreement to pay rent together, or is it her place already? You would be the a-hole if you leave someone without some kind of discussion about rent. You're totally within your rights to end the relationship." OP replies, "Laura already had this place for a while before I showed up. Basically, her first roommate flaked on her, and we decided it was a good time as any to move in and split the expenses. I suspect she won't have a hard time getting a roommate within the first couple months." User 5 says, "NTA, I don't like to advocate for breaking up when I don't know both sides of the story, but religious differences are a massive deal breaker for most people. If she's refusing to even discuss it, there's literally nothing you can do. As far as moving out, if you don't want to be an a-hole about that, then you can try to be as helpful as possible. Could she get a roommate? When is her lease up? When will she be able to afford it? You could agree to pay a few months' rent to give her time to adjust or find a new place." OP replies, "She has a few friends I know would be interested. She makes much more than I do, so while I feel bad about making her pay the full cost of the place once I'm out, I know she can afford it for a few months. I cannot afford to pay any expenses while I'm also paying to live elsewhere. I make much less than she does." Now we get an update. I'd like to update everyone on the situation since my original post. I broke up with Laura a few days after the post. At first, she seemed to accept it. I moved out a couple days later. We agreed I'd pay for half of the month's expenses to help her out. Another friend of hers moved in a few weeks later, so she isn't in any financial hardship over this. The breakup didn't really hit me for a few days. Then it all came crashing down, and I took a few days off work just to play some video games and hang out with some friends I hadn't had time for recently. All in all, I'm doing okay. I've run into a few mutual friends of Laura and I, and they all seem to understand why I did what I did. I'll probably stop hanging out with most of our mutual social circle, though, as most of them were more her friends than mine. Though the initial breakup was relatively amicable, about a week ago she started drunk texting me, begging me to find God so we could be together again. She'd also send me long paragraphs of good memories from when we were together. Sarah would also text on Laura's behalf, trying to encourage me to come to church and make things right. I blocked them both for my own sanity. Laura is probably just now feeling the breakup and is acting irrationally. I don't blame her. I had serious urges to call her a lot too. You guys were right. I don't feel like I was the a-hole after spending some serious time thinking it over. Thanks for the advice, everyone. Take care. Let's read a couple more relevant comments here. User 6 says, "Her and Sarah can now hook up and then get kicked out of the church." And OP replies, I want to preface this by saying that I'm not trying to bash Sarah or Laura here. I just happen to have heard from a couple people that they suspect Sarah might be super closeted. Apparently, when she went off to college and broke away from the church for a short time, she was seen clubbing and making out with a few different girls. Then she came back home and went back to being involved in the church. Sarah's also spending a lot of time over there now. So a few people suspect that Sarah has a thing for Laura and she tried to break us up in order to get to her. It all sounds crazy to me, but just plausible enough to be real. Either way, what's done is done, and regardless of whether or not it's true or just juicy gossip, it doesn't change anything for me. Your comment just made me think of that. Story 11. Am I the a-hole for losing it and calling my father a weak, pathetic man in front of his family? My father has always been against any confrontation or arguments. He's extremely passive, refuses to stand up for himself, and avoids any conflict. If someone isn't paying attention while walking and bumps into him, he insists it's his own fault. If his employer would mess up his salary, he wouldn't bother fixing it. If a mechanic didn't properly repair his car, he would just accept it as is. This unfortunately resulted in a tumultuous childhood with my insanely narcissistic mother. She controlled his every move. She got him to quit his job and be a locked-in stay-at-home dad. She had him do every chore. She insulted him at every step. She cheated on him relentlessly and even brought APs into our home. She enjoyed making his life miserable every day, and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, were there for me so many times, as much as they could be. They tried for years to make my father leave, but he never budged. When she would direct her anger onto myself in the form of screaming, insulting, or general demeaning, my father never once found the guts to stand up for me or support me. When I was a kid, if I cried to Dad about something Mom did or said to me, he would sweep it under the rug or just insist I forget about it. Hell, he would even try to justify it. As I grew older, it really set in for me how messed up this was. My mother gladly kicked me out of the house when I was 18, and my father just sat there and looked sullen. Didn't say a damn thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamic was awful, and I could have easily gone down the incel route if not for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to get in a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I got stationed and utterly destroyed my father in the divorce. She was killed a year later in a DUI with one of her APs. I took a lot of joy in hearing that it took her hours to die, and that's when I really knew I needed help to process things. I'm almost 30 now, have a girlfriend who's perhaps the best thing to ever happen in my life, and fully understands the situation with my family. I've learned to not allow myself to be consumed with anger and resentment by my past, or so I thought, you'll see, and instead put that energy to my future. I have been extraordinarily low contact / near no contact with my father since I left. As much as I try, I cannot make that connection with him. I recently went to a family reunion and brought my girlfriend with me. My father was there as it was his side of the family. They have many issues with him, but he is family, so whatever, I guess. I made sure to avoid him. I was chatting with my uncles when I heard my father talk in the background. He was discussing how a coworker of his was going through a divorce as he discovered his wife was having an affair, and was positioned to have a very favorable divorce on his side. My father remarked how his coworker should work instead of forgive his wife, and by his own words, set a good example for unity and forgiveness, and how he believed he set a great example for me in that extent. I swear it was like a switch went off in my head, and I was mentally back to being the rage-filled 18-year-old. All these years, and he had never learned a damn thing. I turned to him and asked if he was effing serious. He looked at me and started to stutter. I know the next minute was pure word vomit, and I can't relay it perfectly, but to sum it up, I shouted how he was a pathetic father, pathetic man, his family all know he's a disgrace of a human being who would rather his son be treated like crap than defend him because he's a effing coward. No one would ever see him as an example to live by. His wife would rather F half the neighborhood than even touch him, and he should never ever believe anyone respects him. I began to derail and ramble between my shouting, and my girlfriend quickly took me out and drove me home. It was insane just how quickly being away from him made me feel better. She just held me when we got back and told me it's okay. Again, best thing to ever happen to me. I was ashamed of how I lost it, and I'm now going to resume my therapy. That's a given. However, I'm glad I finally unloaded. It's something that's always needed to be said to him. Extended family is pretty mixed with reactions. His brothers/my uncle said it was time for him to hear it from me. My grandparents are pissed that I did it in front of the entire extended family, with some saying I should have done that behind closed doors instead of everyone. AITAH has no consensus bot, but OOP was in TA with a few YTAs. Now let's read the relevant comments here. User 1 says, "It sounds like you finally got to express the pent-up feelings you've carried for so long. While the outburst wasn't ideal, it seems like it was a necessary step towards healing. It's good you're resuming therapy to process this further." OP replies, "Yeah, afterwards it hit me that although it was very cathartic, it definitely wasn't the most appropriate way to handle it, lol." And the user Never Too Much Thought says, "He sounds like a gentle, kind, and well-meaning person. You directed what is very clearly anger and resentment for your mother at him. It's a bit more complicated than being an a-hole or not. You seem to have got some catharsis out of it. I just don't believe he's the one you really wanted to scream at, and from the sounds of it, he was also a victim of your mother too. And while he was the adult and should have known better, he obviously didn't. Being non-confrontational isn't some character flaw, it's psychological, and he probably needs therapy himself. Screaming at him and demeaning him actually sounds like something your mother probably did/would do, and I worry about you if that's something that actually made you feel better about yourself." OP replies, "Yes, I fully admit he was a victim of my mother, but he was a victim who had a support system he never wanted to use. He fully let me be a victim my entire childhood because apparently it was too much effort to try, and to this day doesn't believe he needs therapy." User 2 says, "All I can say is based on your post and this interaction is your anger is deeply misguided, and you're failing to recognize the truly horrifying thing. You're behaving like the mother you actually should hate." OP says, "Oh, trust me, I fully hate her as well, but she's gone, and there's no use in holding a grudge against a dead person. I had hoped, though, after his son making him an outsider in his life, his family openly joking face-to-face about his failings as a father, and his ex-wife draining him for everything he had and making him start over in a one-bedroom apartment, his friends slowly leaving his life one at a time out of embarrassment, that he would have maybe have at least one moment to reflect and maybe consider he should have done things differently. This is OP on getting therapy due to his past trauma." OP says, yeah, either way, I need to hop back on the horse for therapy. It'll be good for me. As for my grandparents, I really have had to look back as to how far this pattern of enabling goes back. I know they all did what they could to try and help, but it always seemed like there were times that more active measures could be taken. Times where people should have been far more stern with his addressing his behavior. The older generation on his side are the classical, they're family and we stick together no matter what. And I have to think whether his passiveness and enabling is something he picked up on or something he learned from his own parents. Now we get an update post. "Thanks for the advice and recommendations, even amongst some of the YTA. However, some of them needed to be addressed because they were either hilarious or cringeworthy. 1. Some of them were very angry, and they kind of confused me at first until I saw their comments further down or saw their profile and saw rants about double standards or complete non sequitur ramblings about women. So yeah, not helpful advice, and they were great dark reflections about how I could have turned out if not for the support in my life. 2. Some attempted to portray my dad as a humble, kind, caring, sensitive old man who I'm just being a big bully to. This was a very good insight into how enablers of abuse get away with so much in today's worlds, because so many people forget how they're a part of the abuse themselves. 3. Some were attempting to mentally dissect me or have a gotcha moment with me to pull apart my story. That was generally asinine, and I had to step away from those before they asked for my cranial measurements or something. So it was pretty much immediately when I was up the next morning that I realized I needed to resolve the events of last night. I first spoke to my girlfriend and gave her a sincere apology for having her see me like that. She reassured me that nothing was wrong. She'd known me for years and has always known me to be level-headed and understands why I kinda snapped. She herself has a story of dealing with a narcissistic family, so she absolutely understands the dynamic. She only really told me that it would be best to work on spending time around my extended family since my father will always be there. I told her, don't worry, I'm immediately going to talk to them afterwards to figure that out. So that part's fine. Looked like kind of an ass in front of her, but I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. I also informed her of my intentions to resume more therapy just to keep myself steady, which she was happy to hear. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologized as well for putting such a sore dent into their family reunion. That it wasn't appropriate, and while I still feel it felt good to say that to him, it should have been privately and not in front of everyone. I also told them that going forward, as much as I love spending time with them, since the family always hangs out in one group that my father will always be in, for now, until I can handle being around him, I need to distance myself occasionally until I feel comfortable interacting. I told them that I am, nor would I ever be establishing an ultimatum or demands of them, and that either way I need to step back. I guess during my apology and explanation, I was kind of just going on a tangent because my grandfather interrupted me to calm down. He told me that after I left, people kind of separated or slowly started leaving, so they eventually were able to talk to my father one-on-one. I guess seeing me have such a freakout resulted in my grandmother having a mini freakout of her own when she started talking to my father, resulting in her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both, my grandmother has always been extra protective of me, so seeing me that way must have set off a fire in her. My grandfather then said it has become a bit of an open family secret my father's failing. His brothers taunt him about it and generally don't have a great relationship with him. And for my grandparents, it's always just uneasy. But seeing me the other day and how it still affects me so much has really liked in for a lot of people that it was really bad. They began to try and say sorry if they didn't do enough, which I very adamantly retorted that they did more than what anyone could have expected. It was very emotional for a minute, but culminated in them telling me that they decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being, and have given him the ultimatum that unless he has a deep introspective and regularly goes to therapy, that distance may become permanent. My extended family, I've been told, are going to try to reach out or call or whatever, but I asked them if they could relay to him that it's not necessary, and that I'm fine and I'm sorry to them as well for ruining the day, which again, they told me I shouldn't apologize for being hurt. Since then, extended family have sent some messages with the general consensus that it's okay, with some other members complaining about my lack of respect towards my father. And finally, I texted my father hoping to meet at a local coffee shop and have a final talk. I met him and he didn't look good. I think his parents tearing into him finally got the message through. I had so many things I could have said, but I instead asked him first thing if the coworker he gave advice to took it well. He just said that neither him nor several coworkers interact with him anymore. I asked him if he truly 100% believes that every single thing he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He didn't really say anything. I then finally asked if he has any regrets for how I was treated as a child, and if he thinks he ever did anything wrong. He looked utterly defeated and just mumbled that he could have done more. I could have poked and prodded and could have gone on another rant, but instead I told him that this should be goodbye, and I hope he gets the help that he needs. I think finally unloading my frustrations was what I needed to finally be able to move on and find peace. I absolutely need to keep on track for therapy and admit that a public bickering moment isn't okay, but I should be fine. Let's read a few more comments here. User 3 says, "This is an interesting one. The ability to control one's failures. Yes, that's what I'll call your situation. Is very powerful. You'll do alright." User 4 says, "Congratulations sincerely on owning your actions. No matter how justified, you acknowledged your outburst was uncomfortable for others and likely not appropriate in that setting. It takes incredible strength of character to admit your failings, even if you have no idea how else you could have reacted in that moment. That you immediately communicated that to your loved ones is a huge sign of how respectable and genuine you are as a person. I really hope you keep moving forward from the situation with the same mindset. Good luck." User 5 says, "NTA, it sounds like you handled things well after what happened. You took responsibility by apologizing to your girlfriend and family, and it's clear you're committed to moving forward by focusing on therapy and healing. It's understandable that you snapped, given everything you've been through. It's also clear that your outburst made your family realize the impact your dad's behavior had on you. Don't beat yourself up over it. You've done what you needed to do to move on, and it seems like you're on the right track now." So user 5's response there basically echoes exactly how I feel. It was perhaps a bit of a mistake to blow up like that in that environment. But, when you're angry and you've got so much pent-up frustration, you can't really control when it happens or what comes out of your mouth. So the fact that he owned up to it, apologized, and is looking to make amends, that's really all that you can do. So good for you.